Hello, 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 hello. Ooh, why is the music still there? Oh, why is this not working? Hello, hello, hello. Okay, let's just check what's going on here real quick. We are looking for Chrome. There we go. Okay, we have success now. And we'll grab our logo that for some reason isn't there. Oh, and that logo that for some reason is there. Everything's a little bit messed up. Give us a second. Oh no, that logo is meant to be there. That one in the middle. Yeah. All right. Nice. Okay. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to. What is that saying? Service is unavailable. What? Why is nothing working today? Why is nothing ever working? Why? Nothing ever works. Why does nothing ever work? The alert box, I believe that is. Why is the alert box not working? Let's go and grab the alert box of a Ko-fi. Because that's an important one. We're doing a fundraiser. We need that to work. Okay, we'll grab this. We'll grab more stream alerts. Always a successful start. Okay, we want this. Yes, copied. Okay, it still says service unavailable. That's interesting. Let's just throw a little test out there. Send a little test alert.
Someone donated £3.
Okay.
Test
alert seems to work. I don't know why that says service is unavailable. I don't even fully know what that is, but it's saying the service is unavailable. But we're going to just roll with it, I guess. But also, the test doesn't look... doesn't look right. Everything's a little bit broken, but it's good enough for us. We'll roll with it. Okay, all right. We're getting started for realsies. Oh, we do have one thing missing. We have our little goal. Hey, the fundraiser for Disadvantaged Youth. Let's make a little edit to that as well. The number is actually totally incorrect, but we can still have a number there. We can have a number there. Why not? Why not? Show publicly. Yes. Update. Okay, that might not update on OBS. Hey, it did it straight away. Oh, okay, but it didn't actually show the amount. Okay, well, whatever. I will look into that in the future. We have currently raised, let me see, 5, 10, 20, 45, 90, 100. We've currently raised £100. It's just a little bit broken right now. Okay, all right. Hey everyone, let's do a voice workshop. Memorize all of these things so I can actually see you all again. Okay, all right. So there's no scuff if it isn't live. Yeah, true. Hey, welcome everybody to the the Trans Network Voice Modification Workshop. Right now, for the month of Pride, for every Wednesday, we're doing a workshop. And during that, we're trying to raise money for our Trans Youth Fund. So over in Trans Network, we have a Trans Youth Fund. So young people, so anyone under the age of 25, or 25 and under, that can't afford their own lessons. We have a fundraiser that's done by the community to help cover those lessons. Pretty cool thing. For our disadvantaged youths. And yeah, so for all of this month, every single Ko-fi donation, you can see the link below us, like that. For every single Ko-fi donation, we are going to have all of that is going to go into the pot, into the fund, and then everybody that every donation that's like one of the memberships, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, blah blah blah, any of those are going to be doubled. Okay, so if you signed up for £25 membership, then there will be a £50 donation to the pot, which I will match for you. So yeah, hells yeah, happy Pride, everybody. Okay, so for the people in the various chats and discords, first of all, if you don't know, we are in multiple discords right now. So we have Trans Voice, hello people in Trans Voice, and we have Trans Network, hello people in Trans Network, and then of course we have the YouTube chat. So just a little bit of rules and etiquette for all of you. Make sure we are being respectful of learning environment. So no like crazy shout outs. If we can avoid interruptions, that would be really helpful. And then please be really respectful to your fellow attendees. I don't want any fights or any scraps, any personal beef coming up in the chat. We want to stick to helping people with their voice. And when it comes to like giving feedback on each other's voices, I would say for now, that's what I'm here for. Leave that to me. There might be times that I say like, oh, hey, say, audience, what do you people think about this voice that you're hearing right now? But that's only in certain situations that I'll do that. And I'll let you know. And lastly, if we can be staying on topic, that'd be really, really helpful. Yeah, make sure we stay on topic. This is all about voice today and gender affirming voice. So we don't need, try to avoid filling the chat about just what your weekend plans are or like what's happening right now in whatever. We want to stick to voice stuff because occasionally messages can get missed in the chat, and I don't want to miss anybody's message if it's like a question or something and they need some help. On that note, if I do miss a question from somebody and you see that I've missed a question from somebody, if you can just reply to their message with a little @Zara, you missed us, then that'd be really helpful. It's really cool when you guys help each other to like get help. And yeah, I love to see it. So yeah, if you see that I've missed something, then just let me know, even if it wasn't necessarily your question. Okay, all right. Normally we have a open forum section at the end, like where we do one-on-ones. Today we probably won't have time because I'm just a bit short on time today, but we'll see where we go. Okay. Alrighty. So who am I? What's going on right now? What is all this? My name is Sarah. I am a gender affirming voice teacher. I specifically teach gender affirming voice, trans voice. That is like what I do. I'm not a singing teacher. I'm not a acting teacher. It's just my entire specialism is trans voice. I am the owner of and dedicated voice coach of Trans Network. Hello to all people in Trans Network. So that is my Discord server, my YouTube, and my thing, basically. You can see links all around you right now. So YouTube, youtube.com/@trans_network, where we are live streamed right now. Discord, I'm not going to read that out. You can read it yourself. There's the Ko-fi link. So if you want to help support our trans youth, then ko-fi.com/transnetwork, and get this fundraiser going. We do have TTS on, so you can leave a cool little message. That doesn't have to be on topic. You can say whatever you want to say, as long as it's within reasonable terms of service and stuff. But yeah. And all of those links are in my Discord bios for where we're at Zara's 1.2, Zara's 1.3, and it is in the YouTube description as well, if you just want to click it, So yeah, I've been hosting workshops since like August 2024. I've been teaching since October 2024. So decent bit of experience with it now. I developed my own voice myself. I had a little bit of help from a voice teacher who a speech therapist who wasn't really that helpful, and sort of that's how I came into all this, because like there just wasn't enough good stuff for trans people. The content was confusing. I love trans voice lessons, but like Z, your stuff is a bit like, okay, that's really interesting, but how do I do this? So I wanted to like fill that gap for people and provide like useful information and useful teaching to actually help you fully change your voice. With your feminizing, masculizing, androgenizing, the whole lot, we want to make that actually a simple process for you, because it doesn't have to be that complicated. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm all about. So you can book your own lessons with me in the Discord. Current prices are £35 for privates and £15 for publics. Publics are fully booked and are on limited because I only have limited time to do those. But yeah, keep an eye out and if that's what you're looking for. All right, let's keep going. So the really important bit is what I'm not. Okay, I'm not your doctor. Let me move that mic to actually be in front of me. Yeah, there we go. I'm not your doctor. I have no medical qualifications. Yeah, I can't diagnose you with anything. I can't treat you with anything. Nothing that we do is ever like medical advice. I'm so sure this can get a little bit further. Maybe I just need to configure this differently so I can actually be like in my little flowery thing. Yeah, not your doctor. Definitely can't diagnose you or treat you with anything. Think of me like your guitar teacher, you know? I'm just teaching you to do a skill. That's it. Closest we could ever get to something like that is if I hear one of your voices today, or like if I hear one of your voices in a different context, you know, if you leave a clip in my server just asking for like some help with your voice or anything like that, or if you get lessons with me or anything like that, if I ever hear your voice and something like rings alarm bells to me, I'll let you know and I'll maybe recommend speaking to a doctor about it. But that doesn't mean that you have anything wrong with your voice. It doesn't actually mean anything. It's just like, oh, this person that is reasonably informed thinks maybe I should speak to a doctor about this. But that doesn't come with any like special weight, you know? I don't have like a special opinion there. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk voice. A little bit about maintaining your vocal health. So things that are useful to do, you'll see me doing this entire workshop, is staying hydrated. Staying hydrated is really important. It generally is going to allow your vocal tract, everything in your vocal tract to just move more easily. When things are dried out, they're more prone to irritation, which makes you more prone to injury. It's always good to stay hydrated. And yeah, it's no different for your voice. Staying hydrated will also help with your mucus production, just regulate it to as it should be. So yeah, stay hydrated. I recommend like 2 to 2.5 liters per day. For the girlies on spironolactone, you might want a bit more than that. Okay. All right, staying super relaxed. This one's a big one. All right, everything that we're going to be doing right now, your voice shouldn't feel strained or like there's much effort going in. You'll get the best results out of your voice and you get the most natural voice if everything just stays nice and relaxed. None of this is going to be physically effortful. It's all just going to be a skill that you learn. Just like how like you're already physically capable of playing the guitar, you just don't know how to do it. But that's a mental thing, you know, like learning precision, learning coordination. But none of it is but like your fingers like raw capability. Yeah, it's the same for voice. You're already capable of it. You just need to know how to do it. Yeah. So none of this requires really any physical effort at all. Talking will always feel exactly the same as it always has felt. You already know how to talk. You're already good at that. So yeah, everything staying nice and relaxed. Really, really want people to avoid this like pushing to make things happen or pushing to make that feminine voice or squeezing or anything like that. Stay away from all of that. Let's just stay nice and relaxed. Warm-ups. We'll talk about that in the next slide, I believe. Oh no, a few slides time. But warm-ups are going to be something really, really useful. Warm-ups are going to help you, again, with, well, it's like any warm-up in your body. It increases blood flow, which is going to, make things a bit more, increasing blood flow and stretching things out, which is going to make things able to move more. It's going to be a bit more limber. It's a bit safer. We're also, all about hydration. Like the way your body hydrates itself is you drink water, that goes into your blood, and then your blood carries it to where it's needed. So by increasing the blood flow to our vocal tract, by doing a warm-up, we're bringing that water to it. So all that water that you've just been drinking and working so hard to attain, well, now use it, okay? So warming up is going to be really good. Like when we do anything with our bodies, warm-ups are a good idea. They help us avoid injuries, and they help us to be able to actually do the thing we're trying to do more, which is always good. And then lastly, try to make sure you're having fun with this. Voice work can be like this is a long process, very much like all things transition. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. And like really, it's a marathon. And it requires a lot of work, a lot of constant daily practice. We're talking 4-5 practices, maybe more, every day for months. My fastest students will be about 3 months, but some take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Pretty rare that I have more than 12 months, but occasionally. So like, this is going to be a big process, okay? And with a lot of work going into it. So we really want to like help ourselves there, actively look for the fun and enjoyment of playing with our voice, because that's going to help us to like actually commit to practicing every day and for it not to feel like a slog, 5 practices a day, every day. That's a lot of just doing stuff, and a lot of engaging with a topic. So like, yeah, we want to lean into the fun because there's fun stuff to be had here. So yeah, try to be kind to yourself and try to avoid the stress, bring that fun. That's going to help you a lot. Okay, so things to avoid. All right. Now, these first few aren't that big of a deal. The last ones are a much bigger deal. Okay. So caffeine consumption. Caffeine is a diuretic, which means it makes you pee. So real simple. All that water that you just spent all that time drinking, it's just being lost again. So that's that's the deal with caffeine. It just makes it harder to stay hydrated because you drink it and then you pee, as all of you will be familiar with if you've had a bunch of caffeine one day. Yeah, not a super huge deal because you can still be drinking. But if you're having like multiple energy drinks a day, that might be a bit of an issue, Okay. Sugar. Sugar, it's a similar story. As we increase our blood sugar levels, it makes it harder for moisture to leave our blood into whatever it's trying to hydrate. Think of like that sugar is holding on to all the water molecules, which means they can't go anywhere. They can't enter our vocal tract and hydrate us, which means all of that water you've been trying to get is then trapped. Again, it's not the end of the world. You can just drink more water, and it's not like this is having a huge, massive impact. But if you're having like a ton of sugar every day, then you might want to look at that and examine that. Or if like all your hydration is coming from like pop, then you're probably not actually getting hydrated very much at all. Drinking just Coca-Cola all day is not the same thing as drinking water. It like very much so you're not actually able to get any of the hydration out of that Coke because of all the sugar and the caffeine. So yeah, watch out for that. But not that big of a deal. Now, smoking and vaping, a bit more of a thing. Everybody knows this by now. Smoking and vaping, as you can probably guess, not that great for your throat. Not that great for your vocal tract. You're breathing in hot steam or hot smoke, which causes irritation. Yeah, I would guess that you all probably know that, which is totally fine. This doesn't mean that people that smoke and vape can't feminize, masculinize, or androgynize their voice. There are absolutely people that have like fully feminized their voices as heavy smokers. It's just an extra barrier. So if you were considering cutting down, now would be a great time to cut down. If you wanted to quit, amazing reason to be quitting. An amazing thing for your life. So something for you to consider. Okay, now these last 3, these are the ones that we do want to think about quite a lot. All right. Straining of the voice, pain or discomfort, or tension. Okay. Any of those things are avoid. Okay. We do not want to have any of those things happening. All right. None of that will bring you to a voice you want. So straining the voice, like your muscles really tightening up, tension, anything where you feel really tight areas or really squeezed areas, none of that is going to bring you the voice you want. Your voice will just sound squeezed or sound tense or sound like you're like really stiff. So it won't get you the voice you want. It's something that a lot of people try to engage with voice instead of just listening to the sound, which is the thing we want to change. They'll try to feel it out. And the problem you have is we have a lot of muscles here And like, there's no way you can feel which muscle's which because it's too many. We just don't have that level of proprioception as humans. And when people try to feel it out, usually, and they don't know what they should be feeling, because really, you shouldn't be feeling anything. So they just tighten muscles, random muscles, really, and start straining and start adding a load of tension. And then that impacts the voice in a negative way. It's a higher chance of hurting yourself, injuring your voice, which we do not want. It means your voice is going to be like more exhausting because all of that muscle tension, all of that usage of your muscles, it doesn't need to be there. And like I said, it'll give you a really weird sounding voice, really strange sounding voice. So stay away from those things. None of that is what you're wanting anyway. Pain and discomfort, those are the big bads, okay? That's your body telling you you're doing something wrong. You should stop doing this. If you're experiencing pain or discomfort, you're usually going to either be close to hurting yourself or have just hurt yourself. Now, a little injury isn't a big deal. Usually just means spend the day off or maybe spend a week off, letting it recover, and then you can be straight back at it. We've all been to concerts where we've been like screaming and going crazy, and we do cause light injury to our voice when we do that, and it's not a big deal. Your voice kind of goes away and then comes back again, and it's just not that big of a deal. However, if you are repeatedly doing this, then we have more of an issue. And obviously, because I want you practicing multiple times a day, if you're constantly just pushing through pain every single day, multiple times a day, then we can have a more serious issue if you're just not addressing the problem. As we injure ourselves and it doesn't quite heal, and we injure it again, and it doesn't quite heal, eventually we can have scar tissue forming. As that continues going along, eventually we can have things called polyps that form, which are these like big like sac-like things, and they have to be removed surgically. So they are a more serious issue. Now, I've never ever had a student have any medical issue at all as a result of any of this. No one has ever had any issue under my care, but I don't want any of you guys to be the first. Okay? So if you feel pain or discomfort, stop, come speak to me, because it's probably not creating a sound that you want anyway, and it's high risk of injury. And hey, if we have to take time off because of an injury, we're not practicing during that time. You're missing out on gains, you know? So yeah, listen to your body. The whole adage of like no pain, no gain is complete nonsense when it comes to voice. Pain is a problem, okay? So come speak to me and we'll get it sorted out, okay? Or if you're, for whatever reason, aren't able to do that, review what you were doing there and get rid of that pain, okay? Relax, keep it nice and gentle. That's going to help you out a lot. Okay, all right. Any questions on that from the audience as we continue forward? Because we are going quite fast today, I'm just going to keep going, but ask your questions, okay? It's really, really helpful for me, like for staying in tune with what the audience is like thinking and like whether you guys are following along, if you're really active in the chats. So like, yeah, ask all your questions. Let me know if you're understanding. Let me know if I'm going too quick and things aren't making quite sense. Or if you're just like missing bits of detail. Yeah, the more activity in the chat, the better it is for me. And the better it is for you. So definitely be asking questions. Okay, let's keep going then. So, how does your voice work? What's going on with all this? Okay, it's really, really simple, don't worry. If you look at that power source filter model on there, it's a really, really simple model. And was I pointing the right way? No, it's over here, because I'm mirrored. I do that every single time. I need to like flip around or something. Yeah, okay, so we've got that power source filter model like right next to me. Am I pointing the right way? No, that's towards me, so it'd be this way. Yeah, that way. So we start off, okay? We have a power, all right? And that's going to be our diaphragm, the muscles of our diaphragm, bringing the like strength of our voice. And we have the air of our lungs, which is like that substrate or that fuel to your voice, okay? So we have that air, and that's pushed up into your vocal tract. So up into your larynx to start us off. The larynx is this little, you can kind of see it pretty well on me. Whoa. My lighting, I need to get that big light fixed. but you can still kind of see it. This little tube on me. Yeah. You've probably got one yourself, or you do have one yourself. Whether you'll be able to feel it as clearly as like mine protrudes, who knows? But we've got this tube. Have you heard of a voice box? It's the same thing. And it's just a tube of cartilage, all right? But Adam's apple is a part of that tube, and it's called the laryngeal protrusion. Everyone has one. It's just testosterone exposure that makes it stick out of the skin. But everybody has one. So, okay, we have that tube, all right? Now, near the bottomish, not at the bottom, but like a little bit above the bottom, we have our vocal folds. Have you heard of voice cords? That's what we're talking about right now. And they have these two little flaps of tissue, and they open and close really quickly. We could be as low as like 80 times a second, or as fast as like 800 times a second, or further, you know. Those aren't like the hard limits. That's just like examples. We could be slower or faster there. But they can get really, really fast. All right? And that's what they're doing. They're just opening and closing. Now, as they do that, that air that's going through is pushing up through those vocal folds as they're opening and closing really quickly. And what that causes is for the air to start vibrating. All right? Now, your ears have these little hairs inside of them, these little sensors, and they pick up vibrations in the air, and then they send that information into your brain, and your brain perceives that as sound. So in a very literal sense, vibrations in the air is what sound is. Okay? So now we have a sound. So we call this the source. Okay? But this sound right now is just like a very basic fundamental sound. It has a note like ah, 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 ah. It has a note. And it has like a level of buzziness, like a level of like quantity to that note. Okay? So if you've played with like a synthesizer before, or if you've played with voice tools or pitch reader or anything like that, when you just press a note and just goes like, that's what we've got right now. Okay? But that note doesn't, like, we produced a sound, but that sound exists, that sound exists in 3D space. Okay? So there's still more that's going to happen to it. All right? That sound, if you look at like the GIF, in the corner, varish? Yeah, varish. Okay. I'm so bad at this. Okay, bottom corner, under the text. You can kind of see we have that sound, okay? That vibrating air bouncing around all the vocal tract, okay? And as it bounces around, so it like continues past your vocal folds, up the rest of your larynx, towards your pharynx, into like your mouth and your nose, and eventually is projected out, constantly just bouncing around as it does that. And that kind of shapes the sound, all right? So we still have that note. We still have that like core, it's a note, it's a level of buzziness, but it kind of shapes into your voice. So we have the words we say, for example. All of me, you're not hearing a series of notes from me right now. You're not hearing that just base level sound. You're hearing language and speech, and the way I'm saying the words, and all of these different things, and my accent, and different stuff like that. And all of that is the shaping of a sound, okay? Because sound takes on the shape of its environment. You can do this with like, if you take two different boxes that are different sizes, you tap on each, they'll sound different because that filter is going to be different, okay? So we call that the filter because it kind of applies a filter to the sound. If you really want to play with this, get like your toothbrush, if you've got an electric toothbrush, and as you're brushing your teeth, try moving your mouth around. Like it's going like, and then you move it around. Kind of move your mouth around without actually making any sound. The sound I'm making is just to imitate the toothbrush. And as the toothbrush vibrates for air in your mouth, it becomes that source, okay? And as you move your mouth around, you'll shape that sound. And you can kind of make vowels and stuff happen. And you can kind of talk without talking. Because that's what the talky bit is. It's just changing the shape, okay? Does that all make sense, everybody? Hopefully that's not too confusing. A filter bit is, if I lose people somewhere, it's the filter bit. Because it's kind of a bit of a novel concept. Quiet chats today. What are we thinking? Does that all make sense? Lightly pressing a vibrating anything such as a razor, if you have a vibrating razor, to your voice box. Close to a trick. Yeah, that could work. Because you're just vibrating the air. I'm trying to think of any other examples. If you have something to just like make notes on your phone. So if I bring up like pitchreader.com, that's my go-to, by the way. If you want to like check your pitch, pitchreader.com, and it also allows you to like press notes. So if I just do, I don't know, F3, zoom in. Oh, I need to disconnect my headphones, that's why. You'll hear that? Okay. I think my speaker's on this end. So if I can't make it keep playing it. It's not perfect on mobile. You hear that? Oh, that's just from me moving my mouth around and just doing it very quickly to do a little demonstration there. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does. Okay. Let me know if any of that doesn't make sense. All right. So we have how we talk. Okay. Now, why is that useful for us? All right. Testosterone has an impact on that power source filter system. Okay. So the first thing that happens, let me get that there. First thing that happens is those vocal folds start to thicken up. All right. Which means that level of buzz to the sound, that starts to be impacted. Okay. We vibrate the air with like a bigger impact. Okay. Which makes it just a bit more of a buzzier sound. Okay. We hear that like bigger impacts. All right. So it takes us from a sound over here, which is a much more like gentler, lighter, thinner kind of a sound. And then as we add more and more mass to it, we end up with a thicker, meatier, heavier, whatever word you want to use, buzzier kind of a sound. And that's what happens when those vocal folds thicken. Okay, it kind of changes the way they vibrate, adds a bunch more mass into it. Okay, which is going to impact that buzziness. Yeah. Now, the vocal folds themselves start to lengthen as well. So we've got them thickening upwards, we've got them lengthening outwards, and that affects our pitch. On average, the data is very back and forth, but supposedly that drops the pitch by about an octave, although that varies massively between people. More on why that doesn't actually matter much later in the workshop. We don't care about pitch. You'll find out much later. And the other big thing that has a really big impact is the larynx, that tube, remember, where the vocal folds are? That larynx gets bigger, okay? So that's why that Adam's apple, the laryngeal protrusion, that's why you can see it after you've been exposed to testosterone, because just as the whole thing's expanded, that sticky outy bit has just pushed against the skin a little bit. That's all that is. So as it's gotten bigger, that's affected that space that the sound is being originally created in, okay? So that filter is going to be a bit different now. We've got that larger space, so we get a larger sound coming out, or like a darker sound, okay? It's the difference between over here, I'm using a much smaller space, and then over here, I'm using a much larger space, okay? So this is what happens as a result of that testosterone exposure, okay? So we start with our lighter, smaller voice, and then as we add our vocal fold thickening and we add our larynx lengthening, we end up moving towards a more typically masculized voice. Yeah, that's what the deal is there. Now, as I was doing all those things, yes, those things happen, and that sucks. But as you just heard, I just went back and forth between those. In fact, I did significantly more than what testosterone exposure would do, and went back again. All of these things you still have control over just at a manual level. It's like, yes, those vocal folds thickening affects the way they vibrate, but we have enough control of our vocal folds that we can just choose how they vibrate. We can just vibrate differently, okay? And send it back again, okay? And yes, our larynx, it's kind of dropped down a bunch to make more space, but we can just raise it up, which shrinks that space. And it totally undid the entire situation, yeah? Because we said, while yes, testosterone has made some changes there, we have muscles that still control those areas to move them all back to where they were. So no big deal. All of these things are completely changeable via just behavior. All right. So how? First thing we're going to do is a little warm up. So this bit isn't going to do anything to your voice. It's just a warm up. Just like when you do a warm up and a stretch for before you do a run. That's not like training to make you a better runner. It is just a warm up. And same here. We're just warming things up, stretching things out. That's not going to feminize your voice or masculinize your voice or androgynize your voice. It just gets you ready to then do that. Okay? So what we're going to do is SOVTs, semi-occluded vocal tract exercises. Big scary words. It's not that big of a deal, don't worry. Semi-occluded just means partially closed. So just a partial closure somewhere in our vocal tract. We discussed what that is. Okay, your vocal folds all the way to your mouth. And a little exercise. Super simple. Essentially, think back to that power source filter model. We had all of that power, all of that air pushing through your vocal folds. Now that's fine, but that's quite a bit of air pressure that it's under if we're trying to do like a nice and gentle warm up. Okay. So what we want to do, so that we have a gentler warm up, is and like a gentler stretch out, is trying to reduce that pressure. So what we're going to do is we make a partial closure, make a little barrier somewhere in our vocal tract, and as that air is coming up, and now it's vibrating, all that vibrating air is going along, and instead of it all exiting through your mouth, some of it's going to hit that barrier, and it's going to rebound and start going back again. Okay, so now we've created some downward air pressure that meets that upwards air pressure. When two pressures meet, they cancel out. It's like a physics thing. Yeah. So we have our upwards from all that power. We want to reduce that power, so we made a little barrier to just rebound some of it. So then the two meet and cancel each other out. So now we have less pressure for your vocal folds to be under. Does that make sense? So the way we're going to do this is my go-to that I tell people to do are lip trills. Okay, they sound like this. Super simple. When you're making that sound, if you just start off, if you're not sure how to do that, think about like, how do we do that impression of a horse sighing or whatever, a horse's neigh. Okay, you know, like horses do like a kind of thing like that, or at least we say they do. I don't know if I've ever heard an actual horse do it, but whatever. That's an impression that exists. We have that. Okay, now you want to stabilize that. So don't blow, just have like a normal airflow and just sustain it. So I'm not blowing, it's the same amount of sound as if I was to go like ah. Okay, and then I'm going to do exactly that. We're going to add some sound. Okay, that's the exact same as It's important bit there is your lips are totally relaxed. They're not like doing anything. It's just your voice making them vibrate, and you're not blowing for that. So it's not. It's. Okay. If this is your first time doing that, there's your first homework. Start practicing those softies, getting good at them. Now, once we're making the sound, once we've got it down, we're just going to start moving up and down pitch. So. We're just staying nice and gentle as we do this. And so on and so forth. So we're just doing a bigger and bigger gap. Just go a bit higher and a bit lower every time. And so we're going further higher and further lower, starting off small, work our way bigger and bigger, as we slowly stretch out across our full pitch range. So eventually we're going to be like as high as you can go, as slow as you can go. Okay, so that's going to be our softies, our warm-up. All right. If you're brand new to all of this is like your first time doing this stuff, start here. Okay, start getting your practice, getting your warm-up, because we need that before we can do the proper stuff. Okay, you need to be good at your warm-ups. There's several benefits that this has to your voice overall. We've got to be quick today, so I won't go into all of them. But this will get your voice at a really good, healthy place. So try to do these like several times a day. Probably going to be a bit more than 30 seconds to get through a full set, but a few minutes is usually enough. Certainly like 5-6 minutes, and you'll have been doing plenty. Just small moving up and down, bit of a bigger moving up and down, bit of a bigger again, and then like keep going until you've gotten to your maximum pitch range. Okay, and you can do some, silly little like, or like whatever. You can go, do a little tune, do whatever you want. Just get yourself warming up and stretching. Yeah, does that all make sense to everybody? Any questions on that? I know I'm going a lot faster today, so do say so if you need me to like slow down, or you want me to recap on anything. If anything didn't quite make sense, let me know. What do we think in chat? You've been practicing this since the last workshop, but you go up in pitch. We try to go down, you lose the sound. Okay. You go down, you lose the sound. Usually what happens there is as you're going up, eventually you switch into your M2, nice and easy. You can kind of hear my voice went like, and over here we're in our M2. You might have heard this called head voice or falsetto. I try to avoid those terms just because head voice doesn't really mean anything, because nothing's happening that's anything to do with your head. Your vocal folds are here. Just like chest voice, definitely nothing ever happens in your chest. You would be having a great injury if that was the case, because again, your voice is here. It's at your vocal folds. Power source filter model for all is what we're doing. And I tend to avoid falsetto because technically falsetto is in M2, but it has a bunch of stylistic things as well. So like breathiness that you often hear in falsetto isn't like, it's just an opera style. It's just, that's how they do falsetto singing. But it's not like the raw thing. Essentially M1, M2, there are different ways for your vocal folds to vibrate. So normally, yes, we're opening and closing, but that actual vibration is kind of more like a kind of flowy, kind of flowing in the wind kind of thing, and that's like how you normally use your voice. We call that M1. That's what you're hearing in my voice right now. If you've heard of chest voice, that's M1. And then for M2, your vocal folds kind of stretch out, and then they do much smaller vibrations, much smaller opening closings. And because of that, they can go way faster, and that gets just to a higher pitch. Because pitch is just how fast are they going, So when we go into a high pitch, eventually it switches into M2, what you've heard called head voice, M2, and that gives it that different quality, all right? So like, this is M1, this is M2, we have this kind of very different voice happening with a very, very different kind of like sound to it. It's a much thinner sound. You get the idea. Now, what sometimes happens is people will be totally fine going up, and they'll switch into M2. But then as they come down, they kind of get stuck with M2, and the voice kind of just goes out instead of going into M1. And usually, this is really easily solved. Just kind of keep going and trust that your voice will just kind of fix itself, and it just will on its own. Ellie, does that sound like it could be what you've been having? Is it at that sort of M2, M1 break that it's cutting out? So like, kind of like that. Usually that just means you're just not leaving M2, and so your voice is cutting out. Just kind of allow your voice to bring itself back in. Put a bit more like strength into it if you want. But like think, okay, my voice needs to go like into the normal section. Okay, allow it to get into that. You can always have a little practice going like, where we have that like very noticeable moving into the normal section. Okay, and then bring that into the lip trill. And just have a little play with that, have a little practice with that. Hopefully that'll help. Thank you for your question there, Ali. Anyone else got any questions? Or if not, and this is making total sense, let me know that too. I want to hear from you all. Very, very quiet chats today. I see some typing. I will wait for that question to come through before I move forward. Making sense? Nice, nice. All right, let's keep going then. So, vocal weight / glottal quotient. This is going to be the first thing to actually start changing our voice. All right, changing the gender perception of our voice, which is awesome. So, vocal weight or glottal quotient. This is related to that vocal fold thickening we talked about earlier. Okay, that level of buzziness in the voice. All right. So the vocal weight just comes from like, it just kind of sounds lighter or heavier. Just that's how people often describe a sound. Like right now, a lot of people would describe this as sounding heavier than it does right now. They're both like the same loudness, but one just sounds lighter or sounds heavier, whatever that means to people. Or over here, this is also going to be like a lighter voice. Or if I don't do it as quite as extreme, this is going to be a lighter voice, but in a more like masculize other areas of a voice. And then if I bring in all of that weight again, it kind of sounds a bit heavier. This is where that term comes from, and this is your typically masculine voice. Hopefully, at least if I'm doing a decent job of it. Definitely need to practice that a lot more. But whatever. So, how do we play with it? The term glottal quotient, by the way. It's big, crazy name. It's not used super commonly, but I do see it in places like linguistics and in some other places. And it's it's not as complicated as it sounds. Essentially, our vocal folds, they're opening and closing. So we could kind of think of that as cycles. It's like it's closed, then it's open, then it's back to close again, open, closed, open, closed. So there's a cycle happening. Okay. So if we were to like measure from the first point where we like start leaving closed and start opening, and then get back to closed and then stop the clock there, we could split that into how much time do we spend open versus closed as we go through one of those cycles. And we could kind of split that as a ratio. All right. That's what a quotient is. If you display a ratio as just a number, as a decimal, then that's what a quotient is. So for example, a heavy weight, if I remember rightly, I need to look this up again. I believe it's a 0.3 closed quotient, so amount of time we spend closed, or percentage we spend closed, which means an open quotient of 0.7, because they should add up to 1 at the end, so like 70% and 30%. And then a lighter weight is going to be like a closed quotient of like 0.2, so a bit less, or an open quotient of 0.8. And then that adds up to 1, obviously. So like whatever the closed quotient is, if you minus that from 1, that's what the open quotient is, and vice versa, because they add up to 1, and there's 2 of them. That makes sense? Just rough explanation of what quotient means. It's just a maths term. It's just a way of describing it. So when people talk about like a more open quotient, they're talking about moving towards that like 0.2 closed quotient, 0.8 open quotient. Or if they're saying a more closed quotient, they just mean a little change there, moving from about 0.3 closed quotient or 0.7 open quotient. So just increase the closed quotient by 0.1. Yeah. And that's what that means. And that's kind of a mechanism behind vocal weight. So when we say they vibrate differently, that's what we're talking about. We have slightly more time closed compared to before. Or like the ratio closed to open has shifted to a little bit more time closed than it was before. Yeah. And that's going to bring up that heavier weight, that buzzier sound. So how do we do this? Okay. Because you can't control how like that tiny fraction of a second, that like 0.3 of like 200th of a second, that's crazy to try and control. Instead, we're going to be focusing on sound. And everything that we're doing, I always want you focusing on the sound. Okay, the sound's what you want to change. Yeah, that's the thing that we're wanting. We want our voice to change. So listen to your voice. Okay, the sense we use is hearing. Okay, for all of what we're doing here. Never try to control your body. That's not how it works. Try to control the sound. Listen to the sound. Become familiar with, like, what does a light sound like? What does a heavy sound like? And then choose the light one. Okay. So we have a handy little connection with weight. Weight has a little connection with pitch, in that it's easier to attain a higher pitch with a lighter weight, so much so that your body will just automatically do it. You will automatically already be doing it without even realizing it. And for the absolute lowest pitches, it's required to have a heavier vocal weight. They need that extra vocal weight to support those really, really low pitches. Okay, that's like really low pitches. Okay, super helpful. So we can kind of like, if we imagine it as like a mixer, if we slide our pitch bar up, we can slide our weight slider. Okay, or we can kind of use our pitch to help control our weight. All right. So what we're going to do, if you are feminizing, then we are going to do a pitch hill. So we're going to start off. We're going to raise our pitch. We'll start with a lower pitch. Aim for a little bit heavier if you can do that, and then start raising our pitch and just listen. Listen to what that does to your voice. You can hear the pitch is going up, obviously, but listen to how that changes like the sound of your voice beyond the pitch, okay? Like the quality of your voice. We start off with that, if we're feminizing, then we're going to start from a less feminine area. We'll start over here, and then we'll start bringing that pitch up. And do you hear how much thinner and lighter the sound became? Yes, it was a higher pitch, but the quality of the sound was also very different. We have a very, very buzzy, very heavy start, and a really light and very thin end. Okay. Do you all hear that? Yeah. Now that's amazing. However, now our pitch is in a weird place. Okay. Problem. So what we now need to do is bring our pitch back again, just to a normal speaking pitch, wherever you normally speak at, but we want to keep that voice staying light. Okay, so the weight doesn't change now. We keep it in that light place, but we put our pitch back. So just use our pitch as a little helper to move our weight and then put it back again. Okay, so it's just a weight change at the end. So that's going to sound like this. So now we have this really hollow, this very soft, this very light voice, very thin. It sounds like something's lacking, like that weight has been lost, which is what we were going for, because this is our first step, okay? And you can hear, all I have is, listen to that light, gentle sound, and listen to how it sounds the exact same as I go over to my normal voice that you hear, because that's that quality, okay? That light, gentle voice, all right? We'll talk about what I did to get to my voice in the next bit, all right? That's some side stuff. But you can hear that light, gentle sound is the same light, gentle sound over here, which is what we got at the end of that drill. Listen again. So like over here, we have all of that buzziness. If I was to put my voice back to where it was before, but keeping all that buzziness, we end up with something over here, which doesn't quite sound right, doesn't sound like that feminine voice that we're looking for. So instead, we'll do that pitch hill. We've ended up with this sound here, and then when we do our next steps, we'll end up being able to continue that sound into our voice over here. Okay, so just that pitch hill is what you're going to practice with. Okay, bring yourself to that hollow, that very empty space over here, and then just talk with it and try to get used to having your voice sound like this. Okay, sound that very light, gentle sound. Okay, practice with the drill. The drill will make your voice go there, and then you just got to practice keeping it there. Okay. Whenever you find your voice starting to slip, that weight coming back in, just re-drill and then continue saying what you were going to say during your practice. Okay, and just keep doing that. Okay, and you'll get better and better at it. Okay, now for the masculizers, all right? We're going to go for, let me move that mouse out of the way. We're going to go for a pitch trough. Let me actually move the mouse out of the way. There we go, beautiful. We're going to go for a pitch trough. Basically, the same drill, but upside down, all right? So instead of going up and then down, we're going to go down and then up, all right? So the idea behind this one is as you keep going down to the very bottom of your pitch, the absolute bottom, we're going to end up dipping into what's called the grave extension, okay? Now, the grave extension is just a little thing your voice can do to help it get to really low pitches that's like beyond what it would normally be able to get to. And it sounds, we call it the grave extension because it's a noticeable zone where your voice sounds weird, okay? It sounds sludgy, it sounds thick, it sounds like, well, you'll hear it in a second, okay? Listen to, as I'm going down, suddenly my voice is going to change and you're going to notice that, okay? So, okay, you hear how crazy the voice gets. If you just keep going down till you get to the very bottom, okay? And now we get some weird sounds coming out. If we really try to, like, wherever you think your bottom is, keep going lower, okay? Then you'll find that weird grave zone where everything gets a little bit messed up. Everything gets very, like, thick, very sludgy. And that, within that, is a really heavy weight. There's a bunch of other stuff. You know, you can hear some vocal fry in there. That's those popping sounds. But there's also going to be a whole bunch of vocal weight in there. Question in the YouTube chat, is that the same with fry? So fry is in there, but there's a bunch of stuff in there, okay? Listen to how, yes, there's a popping of a vocal fry. So vocal fry sounds like this. We have all of that popping in the voice. Yes, we have that, but listen to also that really meaty thickness, okay? Okay? Now, as we scoop down to that really sludgy zone, we're going to try to bring some of that back up with us. Now, if this is your first time, the fry might come up as well. You might get a bunch of stuff coming. That's okay. Just get good at bringing that sludge up into your voice, okay? Bad way to call it sludge. Bring that thickness, that, like, you know, into your voice. Bring it back to a normal speaking pitch, okay? And then over time, as you get better with it, you can practice only bringing the vocal weight, okay? And leaving behind the fry, all right? So it's going to sound like this, all right? This is me just bringing the vocal weight up. And do you hear all of that thickness in my voice now? All of that heaviness that's there? It's a much like thicker, meatier sound, a much heavier sound from all of that vocal weight that we found in that grave extension. Yeah? As opposed to, again, this much softer voice that I have now. That's what we're looking for, okay? Lily on YouTube, do you hear, like, the thing we brought up there that wasn't the fry? Yeah? That's what we're trying to do there, all right? And that's going to be your first step of masculizing your voice, all right? Now, for those that are androgenizing, and this will apply for the whole workshop, for the whole of your voice journey, to androgenize a voice is basically take your start point, okay, and go in the opposite direction. So if you start to do something more masculine, start feminizing, and you just stop sooner. But learn the skills of feminization, okay? Or if you've started in a more feminine space, and you're wanting to move to more androgynous, then just start masculizing and stop when you're happy with it, okay? Learn to masculize your voice, and then scale that back, okay? And that's how we androgenize, okay? Now, some common problems that people run into here. It's mainly mixing this, like that weight, the sound of that weight up with other sounds, okay? So a light weight specifically is a different thing to a breathy voice, okay? So we don't need you going breathy here, and I'd recommend avoid going breathy. Even if you want a breathy voice at the end of this, avoid breathiness right now, because right now you're trying to learn vocal weight, okay? It's just a different skill, so we want to keep them separate, okay? Learn that separately, but keep your voice non-breathy while you learn this so that you can have that distinction there, okay? So breathy sound sounds like this. We have all of our air in our voice. And this is obviously a huge amount of breathiness, but if I scale it back a bit, this right here is a very, very breathy voice, okay? Now I'm going to add some weight to that, and you can hear, even though I have a much heavier voice now, I still have all of that breathiness present, okay? I can still go really, really breathy, even with this very, very heavy voice, because breathiness and weight are very separate from one another. So avoid breathiness, okay? Keep that very clear tone, okay? Again, here's a whole bunch of breathiness. Here's no breathiness at all, okay? So avoid all of that breathiness. Instead, focus on your lightweight, okay? Feminizers. Another one is loudness, okay? Both ends tend to mess this up. We don't want you going for a quieter voice, okay? We're not aiming for quieter right now. We're aiming for same loudness. For feminizers, a lightweight isn't a quieter voice. And then a heavier weight isn't a louder voice. So if you find yourself going quieter or louder, practice doing the opposite. Okay, so if you're a masculizer, practice just being a little bit quiet as you practice your weight. Okay, and then if for feminizers, practice being louder as you practice your weight. You can practice yelling as you practice your weight. Okay, hey, over here, hey, can you hear me? You can hear that I have that super light weight there. You can hear I have that light weight to my voice still. But I have this nice and loud voice right now. Hey, hey! Yeah? Because we can be really loud. We can yell while still having a lightweight. Okay? So make sure you separate those out. Lastly, the other common issue I find in people. This isn't that common, but it happens sometimes. I've seen it happen. I've seen other teachers have this issue with their students. And that's hyperadduction / abduction. Crazy words, they're really simple. So adduction, we're having more of something, okay? It's just those vocal folds, as they're vibrating, they're mashing, they're going super crazy, super stiff, okay? And that's hyperadduction. And then abduction is the opposite. So they're just not actually meeting properly. And so we have like that just not quite properly phonating. We have air escaping, yeah? Because we're not closing properly. Because we don't have enough oomph in there, okay? That's abduction. So technically, breathiness could be abduction. But what typically happens here is people getting a really, really hoarse kind of sound. Because you have your vocal folds. You actually have another couple of folds above. And they're like a protective set, okay? They're called the false vocal folds, okay? But because we're humans and we got really good with language and sounds, we figured out how to make sound with the protective ones. But they're not built for that. They're just meant to be a little protective flap, okay? Which means when we do use that sound, it's quite rough on our voice, okay? So the abduction is going to sound kind of like this, where you can kind of hear that breathiness, but also a lot of tension and a lot of like, a lot of stiffness and strain to the voice. And this is going to be that abducted, really hoarse voice. We don't want to be sounding really hoarse like this, because that's really intense in your vocal folds, okay? On your vocal tract, in fact. Very, very, like, wears your voice out a lot. Very high impact in your voice and can lead towards injury, okay? So really avoid that abducted sound. And then the adducted sound, it's kind of like going to be like talking with your breath held, or just like talking but really, really, really stiff like this, okay? You can hear this really, really like high effort, really like high tension voice. You can hear all of that effort being pushed into it. This is that hyper adducted voice, okay? If you kind of go from like hyper adducted and then add breathiness, that gives you that abduction. A way to play with this, if you're like unsure how to do that, be careful as you do this, okay? I don't want anybody putting much force into this because this is showing you how to do the wrong thing, okay? So the thing to avoid is like imagine lifting a heavy weight at gym, okay? Far too heavy, silly heavy. We're being very silly, okay? And we kind of talk like that. That's gonna be a hyper adducted voice, okay? That really like lifting a weight kind of voice, okay? Oh, I will keep knocking the mic. It happens. And then if we add breathiness to that, and then we start talking through all of that, But you can hear all of that. Immediately my voice is like, stop. That's that abducted voice, okay? So very much avoid those ones, okay? I don't have it very often. It's a pretty rare thing. I don't think I've had a student have it, but I know that it happens. So just watch out for that, okay? Don't want any of those sounds happening, all right? Does that make sense, everybody? Any questions on any of that? So pitch hill for the feminizers, pitch trough for the masculizers, okay? And we want to be not just doing the drill over and over again, but do the drill, get it right, like practice the drill until you can get it right. Then once you can do the drill, keep the sound going as you use your voice, okay? That's the important thing. Taking like the change the drill has done to your voice and continuing it into your speaking, okay? That's the bit you need to practice, actually using this in your voice. Now, don't try to like just listen to the sound of a drill. Okay, yeah, I know what that sounds like, and then try to like not drill and just like go straight to it. We don't want that. We want to use the drill to set our voice up, and then use our voice after it's been set up by the drill. Okay, the drill sets your voice up. Don't try to do that without the drill. Okay, yeah, use the drill until you like don't even need the drill, because it's just how you are using your voice. Yeah. Now, a note on that. None of this is going to be a change to your voice. We aren't changing your voice. We are teaching you something new to do with your voice. Okay? You'll still have your old voice. Nothing's going to happen to it. We're just teaching you, hey, here's another voice you can use. Okay? And then as you get really good at that, you can just start using this new voice all the time, and that becomes your voice. More on that later. But yeah, none of what we're doing in any of this is like fundamentally changing your voice. It's just learning the skill of making another voice. Okay, so you have the two voices now, and you just choose to use the one you want to use. Okay, any questions? We're all very sleepy today, clearly. All right, let's keep on going. So we then have our next thing. So once you've learnt your lip trills, you've been doing those for a couple of weeks, you've got that nice strong voice. Okay, I do say if you're brand new to this, bare minimum, just do those for a couple of weeks before continuing. Okay, and be doing them several times a day. A few minutes a day, a few minutes of practice several times a day, before moving on to the weight. Okay, and then when it comes to weight, again, all of practice that we're doing, we're looking for that little and often. I think I answered that question, didn't I, Huggy? Is it the same as Fry? I think I answered that one, unless there's another one that hasn't popped up for me. Let me know if that's the case. In which case, maybe there's an issue with my client. No, no worries. Yeah. When you are doing your vocal weight practice, again, when we're doing all the practice for anything we're doing, we're wanting this little and often idea. Okay, so multiple practices a day, as many as you can fit in, but short practices. Okay, like if you do an hour a day, like one hour a day session of practice, that kind of sucks. That's not really going to be that useful for you. You'll improve, but very slowly. But if you do like 5, 6, 3-minute practices a day, or like 5-minute practices a day, that's like half the time. But you are gonna just smash past the person that is doing 1 hour a day. Like if you did 5 minutes a day, that's 25 minutes total. That's less than half of that 1 hour. But you're going to go so much faster than the person like doing one hour a day. Like so much. 5 is really good. And like when you start looking for those, like, oh, I can just like, I'm doing something right now, I may as well spend 5 minutes practicing. Like as you look for those in your day, you'll find more and more of them, like 6, 7, 8, 9. You'll find there's loads of opportunities to just get like a few minutes of practice in. And there's the other thing. In terms of making practice easy on yourself, don't schedule in practice. Don't try to make a habit of practicing. That's way too hard to do. Nobody can make a habit of like 8 practices a day. That's crazy. No, it's hard to make a habit of one practice a day. Habits are just hard to build, especially if you have ADHD, which is higher in your trans population. I have crazy ADHD. That's way impossible to do. Instead, look for like times in your day where you're just doing something that happens to not involve your voice. So you may as well be practicing at the same time. You're not changing anything about your day. You just are like, whatever you're doing, you're stitching practice along to that. So then the habit of doing the other thing is added to, like, voice practice is added to it. So for example, when you're making your dinner, you probably make that every day. Even if you're doing a little microwave meal, you probably have to microwave it for like 5 minutes. Okay. Doesn't require your voice. May as well do some voice practice while it's happening. So just while you wait for that microwave, you just do a bit of voice practice. Or you're making a cup of tea. Spend 5 minutes doing that. May as well voice practice at the same time. Taking a shower, may as well do some voice practice. Getting dressed, may as well do some voice practice. Driving to work or walking to work, may as well do some voice practice. Why not? Any of those little moments in the day where, I guess I could be voice practicing at the same time as what I'm already doing. So nothing changes about what you do in the day. You just add practice to whatever it is you're doing at the same time. That way it becomes much easier. There's loads of little opportunities like that. It makes it so that it doesn't impact your day at all, which means you're more likely to do it. Okay? So that's how I want you practicing. Look for those little moments. Okay? Because like your main improvement, like when we're doing that just repetition, like revision sort of thing, it's mainly that first beginning bit where you're making lots of like progress and you're building those connections in your brain. Okay? Past that first 5 minutes, you're not actually gaining as much anymore. Okay? Like it starts to tail off. So like continuing beyond that is like, I guess if you're on a 10-minute walk, you may as well spend the 10 minutes practicing. But like that first 5 minutes is going to be where you get your maximal gains. All right. So little and often. Okay. Even like 8 3-minute practices. I have no idea what's 3 by 8. 8, 16, 24. That's like 24 minutes. That's like one of the best students ever. You know, they're doing like 24 minutes a day. Yeah. Okay. All right. There's about practice. If you have practice questions, let me know. All right. So size. That's going to be our next big thing. And this is going to be a big one. Okay. Size is going to have the biggest impact on your voice. It's that filter we were talking about before. All right. Really big impact on your voice. And this is also going to be the longest part of your voice journey because it's going to be something you've never done before. You've never made a sound. Well, yawning does it a little bit. But this isn't something we hear people do almost ever. And so it's going to be it's going to take a lot of learning to do because you've probably never messed with this variable. Okay. But it has a massive impact on your voice. Size is going to be a big one. Yeah. Exactly. You might have heard of the term resonance. Exact same thing, just a different term for the same thing. Or if you've heard larynx height, again, different term for the same thing. So remember before, we had that larynx dropping down and expanding from that testosterone exposure. Okay? Well, if we're masculizing, we want to emulate that change. Okay? And if we're feminizing, we want to reverse that change. Okay? Or emulate having not had that change. Okay? So remember, that filter we talked about in that power source filter model, the space, the sound, when we create a sound, it bounces around the space that it's in. So if you have a bigger space, it's going to bounce a bit differently. It's going to make a slightly different sound versus a smaller space. Okay? And obviously changing shape, that does a whole bunch of stuff as well. All of these things impact the shape of a sound. Okay? Now, to super demonstrate that, I'm going to make a little off-screen sound. That wasn't it. That was just me catching something. Catching a guitar. Have a little listen to this, okay? This is going to be sound number 1. All right? I haven't told you what size is yet. Okay? Here's sound number 1. Okay? That's sound number 1. Here's sound number 2. Let me find a good spot. That's size number 2. Sound number 2. Okay, I'll do sound 1 again. Which one's bigger? Sound number 1 or sound number 2? Question for the audience. You should all be typing now. Not a rhetorical question. Like, actually, which one, just as you guys are all hearing that, what do you think's bigger? Sound number 1 or sound number 2? I'll give a little bit of time for people to type their answers. What do you think? Or if you're listening to this in the future as a YouTube video, if you're rewatching the VOD, what do you think? Sound number 1 or sound number 2? I was seeing a bunch of people saying 2. What do we think? Number 1 or number 2? I'll wait for people to finish making their guesses before I give the right answer. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, it's no longer part of a live stream, it's just a VOD. Drop a little comment. Comment now, what do you think? Number 1 or number 2? We'll take an extra second for you to do that. Yeah, so everybody guessing 2 right now. I see Leah in Hooking in the YouTube chat. Yeah, number 2. That's correct. Now, I hadn't told you what size was yet, but you did know it was number 2. It was bigger. And that's totally right. Even literally. Number 1 was me tapping on the ukulele. Okay? And number 2 was me tapping on this big old bass guitar. Can't even get it all in shot. Yeah? Oh. So yeah, 2 is literally bigger, okay? And it sounds bigger. And you just kind of knew that because we have this intuitive understanding of size. We know what it sounds like when a sound is made in a bigger container or a smaller container. And that's what's happening with our voice, okay? As that larynx got bigger, it made a bigger sound. We could also think of it as like a darker sound, or whatever word you want to use. If we like resonance terms, we typically think like darker or brighter. And when we're saying resonance, that sound bouncing around and taking the shape of its container, that's called the sound resonating. Okay? And it will resonate differently based on how big the resonator, the box, is. Okay? A resonator is just a chamber, a box, space that your voice is in that you can like manipulate. Okay? That's a resonator. So like your larynx is a resonator because you can move it and change it, and that changes the sound, changes the way the sound resonates. Your mouth is a resonator. You got a bunch of resonators, and they just tweak the shape of the sound. Okay, they change that filter. Okay, and then tone larynx height comes from, well, how do we do this? Okay. Now, I'm telling you this so you can understand like context. But this isn't what I want you doing to learn this, okay? We'll go over a drill in a minute. I want you listening to the sound. I don't want you trying to control your larynx height. But to demonstrate, here's my larynx. We could do with more light, really. Let's just... We'll grab a little light, see if this works okay. It's probably going to be rubbish. Oh, no, my phone is too low battery. We can't do that. I guess I can plug that in while we do this. Oh, we had a little boop, boop, boop. Okay, so we have that larynx, okay? Can you guys see my arms up okay? If I like move to a better spot. You can kind of see it moving up and down. Let's see if I do this, can I now use a torch? Yeah. Whoa, I just blinded myself. Okay. Yeah, I think you can see that okay. Let me make this bigger for myself. Grab this, grab this. Okay. hopefully. Yeah, you can kind of see that ish. I've got other workshops where it looks a bit bad. Just my big light isn't working, and that is completely ruining us here. Okay. Yeah, you can kind of see that. So you can see that little Adam's apple there. Well, big Adam's apple, but you know what I mean. Watch. Yeah? A little bit tricky to do while also looking upwards, because that kind of immobilizes things a little bit. But you get the idea, okay? That larynx, it moves up and down. And that's how we change this variable, okay? As it moves down, gets a bit more space, it can stretch out a bit. We get more space, and literally, like, if we're measuring from your vocal folds at the bottom of the larynx to your mouth, or if we move our larynx down, then that's a bigger distance. We've got more space there. Vice versa if we move it up. So that's where this term comes from of larynx height, okay? That's just where the term comes from. Again, don't try to control it that way, all right? Now, in terms of how I actually want you trying to control this, let me get that chat box back up so I can now see what you guys are saying. Amazing. In terms of how you're actually going to control this, we're going to take advantage of whispers, okay? Now, you might notice as you whisper, hello, here's me whispering. I can do this. Hi, hello, here's me whispering. I can kind of make my sound change a little bit. Now, if you're not sure how to do that, you struggle with that a little bit, start off. How does it sound if, like, imagine a really big German Shepherd. Like a big, this is like macho big German Shepherd, okay? Really big one, all right? Or another big dog. What are those Highland dogs called? The big fluffy ones, you know? Really big dog, okay? How does a big dog pant? Just have a little go. How do you think of big dog pants? I'll let you take a minute. Do an actual impression of that right now at home. Do just a big dog panting. Probably made a sound kind of like this. Yeah, that's how a big dog pants. That's what it sounds like. Now, how about a little dog, like a Pomeranian or a Chihuahua? How does a little Chihuahua pant? I'm gonna unplug that because that's gonna keep making noises. Sorry about that. Yeah, how's a little Chihuahua pant? What do you think? Have a little go at it in real life right now. Have a little go. How does that sound when a little dog pants, little Chihuahua? I hope in real life you're doing that impression right now. You've probably made a sound kind of like this. So you have that big dog and a small dog. And yeah, that is what they sound like. Great. Perfect. Now, let's play with that sound a little bit. Can we, as we pant like that, can we kind of imagine what we're saying hello? Hello. Hi. Oh, okay. Hello. Okay, yeah, all right. We're just whispering. Panting is just whispering. We're just whispering ha or ha or something like that. Okay? So great. You just did it. All right? You made a big sound and a little sound. Now, the big dog, little dog isn't a perfect exercise because one thing that happens is we wanted to change our larynx. Okay? But you'll notice in my face, I changed a bit more than my larynx there. And you probably just did the same thing. That's okay. We're going to fix that. All right? We don't want anything happening in our mouth because your mouth is where your language is made. Okay? Imagine if we simplify that vocal tract into just a tube. Okay? We'll do a tube with like a right angle, like literally just up and then sideways. Okay? Sideways bit, that's all your mouth stuff. Yeah? That's where language is made. Your words are made. And we don't want to change that because we still want you to be able to use words. you know? All the words that you use and the way you say them, nothing wants to change there. We don't want that to change because otherwise you're going to have a weird voice. You're going to like sound like this all the time as a feminizer. Or you're going to sound like this all the time as a masculinizer. And that's going to make your voice all weird. We don't want that, okay? Instead, we want to say our words really clearly while having our modified sound. So, going back to our whisper, instead of doing the big dog, little dog, that gives us an idea of just like how to whisper big and whisper small. But let's use actual words, okay? Because then we can control that, like we're saying them normally and saying them right, okay? So we'll use just a little word, just a single syllable word, like hot, for example. We'll try and say that like we were doing the big dog impression. Hot, 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 hot. Excuse me. Hot, hot, hot. Okay? And now we're going to make our way to that little dog impression, but it's the word hot. Hot, 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 hot. Now, what's really important, make sure that stays on the word hot, okay? Biggest mistake people make here is letting their mouth change, because we don't want anything to happen in your mouth. That stays totally relaxed, nothing happens. We're just going to repeat the word hot. It's not doing anything. Everything is happening over here, okay? Watch out that your hot doesn't become a different word, okay? If it starts changing and warping and you're doing sides in your mouth, that hot is going to become like a hat or like a het, okay? So careful that you're not going hot, 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 hot. We don't want that. We want hot, 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 hot. Yeah? It stays the word hot. Okay? That's really important. And that's going to be, for 90% of you, the first thing you run into. And that's going to be the biggest hurdle initially. Making sure that vowel stays the same. Okay? Now, what we're doing in all of this is it's the vowel that we get to practice, because that's where the air is actually just going through. All right? Whereas consonants were more like make collisions and stuff. The vowel is what we're practicing here. So we're going through each of our different vowels, but within a word, because when it's in a word, if that vowel starts changing, you notice it a lot more. I know it sounds crazy that you wouldn't notice, like hot turning into hat, but give it a go, make a recording, and then check recording, and you might have just done it without even realizing it, because it just happens, okay? Your brain wants to cheat. It knows how to move your mouth around. It does that all the time. It does that every time you talk. It knows how to change a hot to a hat. That's easy. And technically, hat is a smaller sound than hot. But we want to be able to say hot small. Or we want to be able to say hat large if we're masculizing. Okay? So we want to be able to do use all of our language at these different sizes, which means our mouth can't be in control. It needs to be somewhere else. And your brain has never done that before. So it wants to cheat. It wants to use your mouth instead. And that's what it's going to try and do. It's going to try and trick you. If you have that happening, where you're going from hot to hat, and you can't make it stop happening, it's really annoying. Your brain is doing a trick on you. It's mushing those sounds together. And even like mentally, it's mushing like the memory of those sounds together. So you don't even notice it happening. So what we're going to do, we've got all those mushed up sounds. Okay. You can't even tell if it's a hat or a hot. We're going to start separating them, okay? We're going to go hot hat, hot hat, hot hat, on purpose. Hot, 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 hot. Oh, issue. That doesn't sound like hot. Hot, hot, hot. It sounds like a weird hot, or like maybe a hat, or it's hard to tell. Hot, 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 hot. Hot hat, 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 hot, 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 hot. Yeah? So wherever your vowel starts to warp, you get that weird sound. It's like you're not even sure if it's a hot or a hat or whatever. Or maybe you end up in hat by the time you notice. Pause. Don't try to get any smaller. And intentionally say the two words back and forth. Hot hat, hot hat, hot hat. And once you've got them separated again, stick with the hot as you continue. Okay? Or whatever it is you're doing. Maybe you're masculizing. You want to go bigger. So you went like hot, 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 hot. Okay? Maybe we're using different words because I want you practicing with a whole bunch of words. It's not just hot. This is just an example I'm using right now. We could also use cheese. Okay? Cheese, 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 cheese. Or if we're feminizing, cheese, 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 cheese. Okay? And the larger end is going to try to go like chiz, 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 chiz. You want a cheese, 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 cheese. That's a particularly hard one. Okay? If you want a challenge, play with cheeses. But I want you practicing all of these different vowels, okay? Something with an E, like cheese. Something with an O, like hot or pot. Something with an A, like cat. Something with an I, like pit. Something with, what have I not done yet? Like, what has but, okay? Play with all of these different sounds, okay? And go big to small if you're feminizing, or small to big if you're masculizing, okay? And there's how we play with size, or the core size. There's going to be extra size in a minute. But there's our basic premise, okay? So get good at that, and get good at the word staying the same, okay? As you get better and better at that, you can get smaller and smaller with the words staying the exact same, and nothing harsh coming through. Our voice sounds normal, but just smaller. We're then going to add our voice back in, okay? So we've got to our... I'll switch word up again. We've done, I don't know, wood. We did a bunch of woods to give a sound. Wood, 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 wood. Okay, I'm happy with that sound. I'm going to use that sound. That's as small as I could get that wood. It still sounded like a very clear wood. My voice was still very relaxed. There was no tension. Let's use this. What you're going to do is stretch it out. Make that vowel last a long time. Keep listening. Yep, still sounds small. This is still as small as I can get it. We haven't had any wobbles. We're stable. Okay. Turn your voice on. And this isn't like a flutter your voice in. This is turn it on. 0 to 1. Okay? And then try to keep that going as you then use your voice. You can hear now in my voice, I have this much, much smaller sound that's come from that drill. Okay? It's smaller than you hear. This is me going as small as I can possibly go. Okay? And that's come from the drill. Listen to how you can hear this level of smallness in the whisper. Can you hear how small this is? How tiny this voice sounds? Really, really tiny little voice. And I have this tiny voice, and that's what we got here. That's size for you. Okay? There's how you do it. Things to watch out for are going to be that vowel warping happening. So you might end up like going from like wood to like word or something. Word. You can hear it kind of still sounds like word. But if you really pay attention, word. It's more like word, actually. We've just like kind of twisted it. So we think it's still word, but if we examine that actually, especially if we compare the first word we did, the last one, that's a word. It's not the same word, okay? So get that to be an actual word, okay? Word. Not word. We're happy with it? Word. Bring it into our voice, okay? So watch out for that vowel warping, okay? Another common one, we'll switch our word up again just to emphasize that we want to practice all these different vowels. Is going to be, you sometimes feel strain when practicing? Okay, so there's our first thing, okay? Tell me more about the strain that you're feeling, Lily. Is it like a roughness to your voice? Is there any pain? Or maybe where is it? Is it just like muscles feeling tight? How does it feel? And where do you feel it? This is going to be my first question there. And this is going to be another common one. Watch for your voice, like the usage of your voice, feeling weird. Okay? Any uncomfortable sensations, we want to avoid that. Any feelings of strain, we want to avoid that. Okay? Usually when people say strain, although you might be meaning something different, Lily, so do let me know. Usually this means that muscles are being like tightened up. Okay? Now this can make two different sounds. It might be a voice thing if it's tightening up. So maybe you have like wood, 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 wood. You can hear all of that strain in my voice. Wood, 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 wood. Or like string to keep it as a whisper. And if I bring that into my voice, it'll be like wood, 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 wood. And I've ended up with a voice like this, which still sounds really large, but also has all of this strain in it. You're probably not doing it like that. That's me doing like an extreme version, where instead of changing my size, I've just squeezed everything. And that's created this really hoarse sound. It's a hyperreduction again. Okay, it's your vocal folds squeezing. And it hurts, and it feels tiring. Was around your larynx felt exhausted? Did it make any weird sound, Lily? Maybe a sound kind of going closer to this, anything like that. That can be a thing. Now, when we're whispering, because our vocal folds, whispering, by the way, sorry, why are we using whispers in the first place? What's the point of this drill? Remember that power source filter model? That source of a sound. Your voice, your sound originates with the vocal folds vibrating, okay? But when we whisper, they don't do that. They just stay open. And so we skip that source. So all we're hearing is a filter, which is why this is much easier to control. So when I'm going like, wood, 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 that's not a pitch change. I know it sounds like a pitch change, and that's your brain just being like, I don't know what this is. Probably pitch. But it's actually not pitch. That's just it just kind of sounds like it because you're not used to it yet. As you keep practicing this, you'll eventually be like, oh wait, that actually doesn't sound like pitch. It sounds like size as you get to know size. But yeah, so our vocal folds are just staying open. But another thing that the vocal folds control is loudness. So you don't have your loudness control anymore. So instead, when we're whispering, the thing that controls our loudness is those false vocal folds again, okay? So the louder we go, the more we're using those false vocal folds, okay? So to avoid using those, because you don't want to use those, to avoid that, just go for quiet, gentle whispers, okay? Lily, when you're doing your whispers, are they quite like intense? Like wood, 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 wood. That really intense sound there. That would explain why you'd be feeling exhausted by it, because that's very exhausting to do. Yeah. Okay, I thought so. So what we want to do so that's your false vocal folds getting involved. That's what's causing all that strain, all that discomfort, because they're not meant for it. Okay. So what we're going to do, really easy fix. Let's just whisper quieter. Whisper not just quieter, but gentler. So imagine like you're whispering directly into someone's ear, and you want that to be a nice and gentle sound. It's not going to be super intense for them to hear. Okay. Nice and gentle. Really, really like low impact. Have a go with that. And let me know, does that fix that like strain you're experiencing there? Now, something for all of you, all the rest of you as well. If you're having that really tight feeling, have a go. First of all, make those whispers nice and gentle, and nice and quiet. Really, when you're practicing this, you only want to be loud enough you can hear it, but no louder than that. Okay? So, how quiet can you go while still being able to clearly hear it? Because you need to clearly hear it so you can actually control it. But just nice and quiet. Okay? Now, when you bring your voice into it, that phonation test we call it, where we did that stretched out one and then brought our voice in. When our voice is brought in, that's going to be a normal loudness. That's not going to be quiet necessarily. It's just for whispers. Because remember, the whisper is controlled by a different thing. The loudness is controlled in a different thing in a whisper as it is in your actual voice. Okay? So it's an actual voice. We're going to be normal loudness. Okay? Would. Hello. Okay, I've got my voice. Here it is. There we go. Yeah? Okay. Other tensions that can creep up? Believe it helps? Nice. Okay, perfect. Another one helped. Exactly. Okay, so there's your something to try out if you're having that tension now. Now, you might have different tensions. You might have different muscles tensing up, okay? Another common one, there's so many muscles in this area, okay? So don't try to control the feeling of anything, okay? don't try to control the feeling, because there's so many different muscles there. You're not going to be able to do it accurately. Other muscles will get involved, ones you don't want getting involved. For example, one's nothing to do with your voice, because you have all of your voice system, crazy complicated, loads of different muscles involved in a really small area. But also, this is your neck. So all the neck muscles for like moving around and stuff, and all of these muscles, you know, all of that, all of these different things, all of that's there as well. So what can happen is when you're trying to change it, some people tense up one of those muscles. I did this when I was very first learning, because my teacher didn't teach me these things. That's why I'm teaching it to you now. I had the back of my neck tensing up. Nothing to do with voice. Completely unrelated. But because I was trying to control like the feel of it and like push my larynx up, I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. I didn't even know at the time, I didn't even know what muscles it was or what muscles are in there. But I was trying it because that's just what seems intuitive. That's why I don't want you trying to do that, okay? I want you trying to focus on a sound, all right? And so the back of my neck was tensing up because I thought that feeling was me doing it right, but it wasn't. And so if you have like a movement muscle tensing up, so we have the jaw tensing up when they try to like stop their vowels whopping around, so try to like lock their like mouth into the right position rather than like just relaxing riffing. If a muscle's moving up that limits a movement, then do that movement. Okay, if movement that's being limited, do that, and by prioritizing the movement, the muscle will have to relax. Like the back of my neck's, if I tense the back of my neck right up, I can't keep it tense and also move my neck like this. Yeah? This movement, you can't do both at the same time. Like that feeling of limited movement, that's because you're limiting the movement so that you can tense the muscle. So if you have that movement, the muscle isn't able to tense. So do the drill while making that movement. Maybe it's up and down if it feels limited. So do the drill. Well, very gently move your neck up and down, or maybe it's side to side. Very gently. Okay? Now with all of these things, this is your neck, so be careful. Be gentle. Okay? Slow movements. All right? But if you feel like your movement is limited, then do that movement and practice while doing that movement. Okay? And that'll stop that muscle getting involved. Okay? You're teaching your brain that these are separate things, nothing to do with one another. It's not even a voice muscle. It just happens to be nearby. Okay? So watch out for that. Other ones are going to be, I think I've heard some main ones. In terms of like tension stuff. Think about like, where do you feel it? What does it feel like? Okay. Again, if you're struggling with that bit, come to me. Okay. I'll help you with that. It's okay. You can either drop a voice note in the clip. No, don't drop a voice note. Drop a recording. Okay. The Discord voice notes, it adds compression to the sound, which fucks with what we're trying to do. I won't be able to hear everything. But drop a recording into the clip feedback channel in Trans Network in the Discord. I'll help you out, or like come get lessons, or come by to one of these workshops. Normally I have a one-on-one bit at the end where we can help people with this bit. Probably have to skip it today because I'm short on time, but you get the idea. Just come by next week. Okay. And the other common problem is pitch. Okay. I imagine a bunch of you have probably just gone for feminizers when you're going smaller. What's another word I can do? Different vowel. What have I not done yet? Pit. Pit. Or something crazy like that. Super, super high pitch. And it feels like you need to do that. But you don't. That's just your brain getting confused and thinking that what we're doing is pitch. And it's nothing to do with pitch. So specifically aim for a lower pitch. Okay? If you're trying to go smaller. Pit, 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 pit. Okay, and I'm using my voice over here. Yeah, play with like some different low pitch notes. I recommend like play with a whole variety of notes. You know, play with a D3. Okay, see if you can do your phonation test at a D3 and continue talking around that D3 area, and then try to practice at an A3 and practice at an A3 area. That's like two different, quite far apart. A3 is kind of high. D3 is kind of low. And you should be able to do that same size change at both of those different pitches, and the pitch just be completely irrelevant. You can do it at any pitch because it's completely separate from pitch. Okay, so practice that. Again, masculizers, you might have that issue, but going super low pitch, like where you end up with a super low pitch. So then practice higher pitches. And play with all of these different pitches as you're doing all your practice. Yeah. So remember, pitch, nothing to do with what we're doing here. You should be able to do a low pitch, you should be able to do a high pitch, middle pitch, whatever, because this is size, not pitch. And as you keep playing with that, you'll get more and more familiar. Okay. Any other questions? I need the toilet, so I am gonna mute my mic as I pop to the toilet. Fill the chats with your questions, okay? Any questions you have about anything we've talked about so far, even if it's like not size, it's one of the previous things, that's totally fine. Ask those questions, okay? Or play with these drills right now and like let me know any issues you're having, okay? Yeah, all right. Lots of questions in the chat, and I will see you in a sec, and I will answer all of those when I get back. All right, be back in a second. Boop. Testing. You shouldn't be able to hear me? Okay, yeah, good. See you in a sec. You could still hear me. No! How? I thought I turned my mic off. How's that possible? It'll just be the Discord people that heard me. Okay, fortunately, YouTube won't have been able to hear that, I'm pretty sure. Let me just test that real quick as I remute the mic using that thing. Testing. 1, 2. 1, 2. Testing. YouTube could hear as well. What? There should literally be no microphone right now. How is that happening? Have my defaults all been messed up somehow? That shouldn't be possible. Let me just have a little look at that. What is happening right now? Oh, it's so embarrassing. We'll have to go back in the VOD and mute that section. Properties. Yes, but what is the device default? How has this happened? How is this possible? My it seems like my sound settings have moved to the mic itself instead of the thing that controls mics. I use voice meter. Let's have a little check. Okay. Why are you doing this? Stop doing this. Okay, whatever. We want sounds. Okay, and then what is my default mic? The default mic moved to the actual microphone instead of being the software. So changing the software did nothing because nothing's using the software. That is horrific. I will fix that later. Dang it. Why did it do that? Okay, well, we'll fix that later. Sorry for those sounds, I guess. Hearing a little bit of biology there. Okay. I've just realized, hopefully all the sounds have been coming through okay for Trans Network, because your settings are slightly wrong. Let me change those sound settings. People in Trans Network, were you hearing the whispers? Because you might not have been. Oh, no, it is correct. Why isn't my box green then? How weird. Okay, I guess it's totally fine. Oh, that's so embarrassing. Okay. When going high, your voice keeps cracking and you can't get a clean pitch. So, maybe going a bit too high there. Go for like an A3. If your voice is like cracking, probably you need to just relax a lot more of a high pitch. No. Yeah, nice and gentle sound. Practice those softies we did right at the start. They'll help you get those gentler sounds, okay? But also, check how high you're actually going. Like, go onto like pitchreader.com. Really, really simple app to, if I can just send it over to you. No, we want the HTTPS, but HTTPS, I think that's how I do a hyperlink. www. Let's move that up a bit because I can't quite see my typing. .pitchreader.com. That should send as a clickable link. Yes, it did. Perfect. I'll send that into everywhere so you can all have a copy of this link. PitchReader is really useful because it will play notes for you. If you like where it displays all those notes on the sides of the graph, you just click on them and it will play the note. And then also, like if you click play in the middle, you'll have to set up your mic settings. It will play the sound for you. Sorry, it will track your pitch so you can see what pitch you're at. Yeah, have a look at where your pitch is, Lily. We don't want to be anywhere in like the fourth octave. We want to be in those threes, the third octave. Because that's like our normal speaking areas, you know? So practice, you know, A3 for like the highs, or like D3 for the lows, you know? A whole spectrum in between. Yeah. Yeah, okay, C4 to D4. You're probably just like in that little zone. So, okay, there's something called the break. When we're moving up, we start off in M1, okay? That like normal speaking area. As we keep going up, we have a little voice break, and then we enter M2, okay? If I do like a really dramatic one, like, you have a little break there, and that's totally normal, okay? But you probably don't have one quite that dramatic, but some people do. So you're probably just trying to speak right where that break is. So just go to either a bit higher or a bit lower, and then you'll be totally fine. I'd recommend a bit lower because we don't need to be in the fourth octave. Nobody talks that high pitch, okay? So practice something free, like an A3 if you want high pitch, okay? Any other questions? C4, D4 is a really normal place to have a break. So that's probably where your natural break is. Any other questions on size? Doesn't sound like it. All right, let's keep going then. Lily, if you still have more questions on it, you can still ask them. Hi, Beth. Thanks for joining us. Okay, all right, we'll keep going. Again, if you suddenly think of a question, you're like, oh, I wish I asked it. Do still ask. You're not like too late as I move on to the next slide. I will go back. Yeah. Okay, so. Ooh. What is happening here? Oh, the little GIF doesn't work. Why doesn't the little GIF work? Google Slides has been doing this lately where certain things just aren't loading properly. That's really annoying. Let me... I can fix this for us real quick. I think I have it already as a thing. Do we have the... Not that. Image? Yeah. Okay. I can just use OBS to give us that image. This is literally that where that image is like not loaded, where that triangle is. This here is literally this image. It just hasn't loaded on the PowerPoint properly. So I will just use this and then turn it off after this slide. And bring it down to here. Where are we at? Okay, does that look fine? That's totally fine. Okay, so remind me to turn it off when we move to the next slide. Google Slides. Why you like this? Okay, so our next bit, this is still size, but this is a different part of size, okay? Size has like an advanced section. So we start off with what I call core size, okay? And that's to do with your larynx. But if we continue going up your vocal tract, beyond the larynx, we enter this area called the pharynx, okay? Think of it as like a roundabout. So one of the exits is the larynx, where we came in, okay? One of them goes to your mouth, one of them goes to your nose, the nasal tract, and one of them goes for swallowing down to your esophagus, okay? So we have our little roundabout just going to all the little tunnels, okay? Like think right at the back of your, like if I was to draw a straight line from my mouth all the way back, like all of these different convergent paths meet in that spot. We call it the pharynx, okay? So you have all of those exits. We have our nasopharynx of the nasal area. We have our laryngopharynx, the larynx area. We have our we don't have a name for the esophagus one. That's just the pharynx. I don't know why that's yeah. That's just what the scientists decided, I guess. And then last we have our oropharynx. Okay, there's the key term for us. So, oropharyngeal constriction. Oro, mouth, pharynx, pharyngeal, pharynx. Okay, so that little the oral root. Okay, the mouth root of the pharynx. That's what we're going to be playing with here. Okay, oropharyngeal constriction, making it smaller. Oropharyngeal expansion, making it bigger. Now I hate these names because they're slightly inaccurate, we don't want to use void constriction. We've just been telling you how you need to relax and not constrict, but whatever. So if you look at that little GIF that I've just brought onto the screen, okay, you can see that dude's mouth, all right, inside his mouth. You can see there's these claws that are like moving in and out, okay? They're kind of getting in and going out, okay? Ignore those. Do you see the dangly thing? It's kind of going up and down. Yeah, ignore that one as well. Behind those things, do you see there's this archway? Okay? And it's narrowing and expanding. Narrowing and expanding. Yeah? You see that? Right at the back, behind the claw things, behind the dangly thing. Narrowing and expanding. That's what we're looking at. Okay? Now it's got a big old name because scientists are scientists and biologists want to prove something. It's called the palatopharyngeal arch. Okay? Big old name, don't worry about it. Okay? It's just the arch thingy in the GIF. That's all you need to worry about. Okay? The palatopharyngeal arch. And as that gets smaller and bigger, it kind of affects the sound of things. If I could rename OPC, I'd call it palatopharyngeal arch narrowing and expanding, because that is what's actually happening, and it doesn't use horrible words like constriction. Okay? Palatopharyngeal arch narrowing and expanding. But nobody calls it that. Everybody calls it OPC, so fuck it. OPC it is. But yeah, as we say our vowels, that bit gets involved as well. You'll notice, especially soon practicing the last bit, and don't move on to this until you've already mastered the previous bit. Okay? Core size is where you start. Okay? Because this bit is the advanced section. All right? As you're playing with those, you might have noticed that, like, maybe even as I've been doing this workshop, maybe right now you can kind of tell. If I use vowels like a, e, these sound like smaller vowels. If I go for like o, u, these sound quite, they're bigger. They're bigger vowels. And that's correct. we have bigger vowels and smaller vowels, okay? Because the whole tube can have bits going bigger and smaller, not just the larynx area. That's why we've got to be so careful to make sure we're doing the larynx area, okay? Now, the palatopharyngeal arch is one of the things responsible. It's not the only thing, but it's part of what makes those bigger and smaller vowels, okay? When we have that narrower space, we get the smaller vowels. When we have that expanded space, we have those bigger vowels, okay? A, E, E, that's got some OPC going on for that palatopharyngeal arch narrowing. O, U, that has that larger space, okay? That's part of what makes those vowels bigger and smaller. Now, we can use this. If everything's going to say we're going to have the bigger vowels, we're going to have the smaller vowels, but all of them can get a bit smaller together. So our bigger ones are smaller, and our smaller ones are even smaller, so that everything has stayed the same relative to each other, but overall, we've got a smaller sound coming through, okay? Don't worry about the mechanisms of it too much. This is going to be one of those sections where it's going to be very confusing, okay? And you're not really going to be able to tell me how this, you're not going to be able to tell me that you understand or if this makes sense, but you are going to be able to tell me that you hear the difference. And you are going to be able to tell me that you can do it. And that's all we're looking for, okay? Don't worry about like what's happening. And just, this is like where I've been really hammering, focus on sound. Don't try to control your body. This is a big one. Really, really just focus on the sound. Because you're not even going to have words to describe what this sounds like. You're just going to be able to recognize it. You won't even have a word for it, okay? We're just going to give you the word of OPC, okay? More or less of that thing, okay? So, have a listen to my voice now. It's okay that you can't say what it is that you're hearing, but let me know in chat, do you hear the thing that's happening in my voice, okay? Just, do you hear something happen to my voice, right? I'm going to say the sentence E speaking from E, and even though I'm not using the sound E in my following words, maybe I'll use it in like some words, but not in all of them. There'll be words that have like totally different words to E, or sounds to E. But there's still something about that E sound that you're going to be able to hear. And you're not going to be able to describe what it is. It's not going to make any sense. But you'll be able to say if you can hear it. Okay? So just yes or no. Can you hear what's happening here? Or can you hear that something's happening here and it came from the E? Okay? E speaking from E. And then you can hear in my voice, something has changed. I sound different now. And you can kind of hear it that it came from that E, of E speaking from E, and then that continued into my voice. Do you hear that something's happening there? I'll make it a bit easy for you. I'll do the opposite as well, okay? Or speaking from ore. I'm just like saying ore is in like a mineral ore, like O-R-E. Or ore is in like a rowing ore, O-A-R, like a wooden ore. Or speaking from ore. And then I'm continuing something about that or sound in my voice right now. And you can hear I sound a bit different to how I sounded earlier. There's something just different. Something about that or, like we've painted in or colours or something. Something's happened there. Again, E speaking from E. I'm just ordinarily saying E speaking from E. And then I'm continuing something about that E sound. And suddenly my voice sounds different. It's like it's been seasoned in the same way that you would season an E. Or like it's painted in the same color as it's been painted in E color, you know, any of these sentences that don't really make any sense. And you can see like I'm not going like E and I'm like talking like this. I'm not making E shape and keeping that there. I'm using words like word, which is complete opposite of E, okay? But something's still there. E speaking from E, and something's still there, and you can hear it came from that E somehow. Or speaking from or. And you can hear again, it came from that or in some way. Even though I can say like cheese, E. But something's there. Something happened that's to do with that or. And that's what this is, okay? Very confusing, very strange. But when we apply it, it has a massive impact on our voice, okay? When you're doing the last bit, you probably found that the smallest you could go for the feminizers was like, No, we used pop before. We use let's use cat. I don't know if we used cat. And you probably only managed to get to about here. Cat. And I had a voice kind of over here, which is not quite all the way there yet. But if I then speaking from E, I then have all of that E sound coming through, and all of a sudden we have gotten there. Cat. E speaking from E. E speaking from E. Cat. And you hear it's kind of like jumped over. If I use a different word, it'll be clearer. If I use like a large vowel, we'll do like door. Okay, that's a big vowel. Do. And I have a voice that's kind of over here. We have a whole bunch of that change happening, but not quite enough. Do. E speaking from E. Do. E speaking from E. Do. You can kind of hear when we do it in a whisper, you can hear a bit better. But door is like something from that E speaking from E is coming into that door in those whispers. Do you remember when we were whispering, we just hear the filters, which makes it much clearer what's happening. Okay, and you can kind of hear it's almost like if I now do a full set, I won't do the E speaking from E. I'll just have a very obvious like, and something happened. Do you hear there's like a phase 1 and like a phase 2? Or like I was going smaller, and then I went smaller but differently. Kind of like I got to the ceiling, and then I kind of like climbed up a window and then climbed on top of a roof. That's what we're hearing, okay? Because we're using essentially what's happening. We had our tube, yeah? We got that like upwards in the right angle. We've made one bit smaller, and now we made a different bit of a tube smaller. So it sounds like size, but different because a different bit of a tube getting smaller. We're hearing it in a different area, okay? And that's what that difference is, okay? We don't really have words for this in English, so it is just like, it sounds different. It sounds something's happened, and we don't really have a word for that, but that is what we're looking for here. I know that's really confusing, and there's a reason this is the advanced bit, okay? You want to already be really good at like the core size from the previous slide before moving on to this, but you will start to get a hang of it, okay? So ways to play with this: you can play with that E speaking from E and try to have something about that E sound carry it across into your words, or speaking from or and have some of that or sound carry through into your words, even though you can say things like even without it being like even or something like that. So make sure that vowel isn't warping, okay? We're not going to say our words any differently. We're pronouncing everything the same. E's stay E's, O's stay O's, stays whatever, you know? Everything stays the same, but like some kind of like flavor of that E, or like color of that or has been like applied to it. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Okay, nice. So play with that. You can also play with, as you're doing that, those whispers, when you get like, you feel like you've hit the ceiling, and it's definitely smaller, but it's just, something's lacking to get to that like where you're trying to get to. Just keep trying to be as small as you can go, but switch your word. Use the sentence E speaking from E instead of a word, and you might notice a sudden jump smaller. That's what we're looking for. That sudden jump smaller. Okay? Maybe you have to say it a few times to get like that full jump. And then try to keep that smallness as you go back to your word. Okay? And that jump is you going into OPC. Okay? Or starting to apply OPC. Starting to narrow that play differential arch. Yeah? Because the reason we have is E is the smallest vowel, or is the largest vowel. So we're using those to help us like kind of piggyback off of them, try to bring some of that largeness of or if we're masculinizing, or bring some of that smallness of E if we're feminizing. Yeah? Again, masculizers, you want that expanded, that or speaking from or. Feminizers, you want that narrowed, E speaking from E. Yeah? You think you're getting it, Lily? Nice. Well done. Well done. Ithaca saying this pretty interesting stuff. Thank you. It is pretty interesting. It's kind of cool that we can just completely change your general perception of our voice, you know? You're aware, and it's part of why you show up to these every time. Oh, you're aware that you'll get better every time? Yeah, everyone is going to get better every time. I know this specific section is like the most confusing bit of all of this. Very, very strange, very, very hard to get your brain around. But as you keep working on all of this, you know, do this in order. Don't go straight to the OPC stuff. This is the most advanced thing we're going to do. Start off with your 2 weeks of softies. Just start there. Don't do anything more than that. Then as you've been doing that, and you've got that nice strong voice, take us over to vocal weight, okay? And master vocal weight. Don't move on until you've got vocal weight down, okay? Once you've got that, it's easy for you. Then move on to doing your core size, okay? Or your larynx height, or whatever. Once you've got that really good, you're really good at it, it's easy for you to do. Then move on to this OPC stuff, okay? Because this is really hard to do. You need to already have built up that sort of ear training that this process will have done for you. And like develop that, okay? Yeah, Beth mentions since we have gifts of OPC/OPE in action, you can practice in a mirror with a flashlight. You can do that. That said, there's a problem you run into. You can kind of see when you look at the GIF, if you watch his tongue is trying to move. Because as part of all of this, in terms of how these muscles are all connected to each other, doing the OPC moves, like, to do OPC, you move something, and that something also moves your tongue. And so your tongue ends up having a little movement. Now, don't try to move your tongue to do this. This will just happen to, you probably won't even notice it. But if you're trying to keep your tongue perfectly flat so that you can see inside, then you run into an issue where you can't, like, talk at the same time. Like, we can't say E speaking from E or speaking from or without our tongue moving. It's part of making those sounds. So you run into an issue there where you can't actually, like, make sounds and look at the same time. So focus on the sound. It's a little thing you can do to, like, play with it. The GIF is also it's a very extreme version. It's really maximizing OPC and maximizing OPE. But, like, yeah, by all means use a mirror to, like, help you a little bit if you want. But really, I want you focusing on the sound. And, like, you can't make the sound properly because you need to move your tongue out of the way. And if your tongue isn't moved out of the way, then you won't be able to see anyway. Just a little quirk of how that works. But by all means, give it a go. Use a flashlight or the light on your phone or something. Like, look in a mirror with the light flashing in your mouth so you can see inside. Like, do your best to keep your tongue down while you practice OPC and OPE. But difficult to do because to say words, your tongue has to move. That's a problem. And we want to be practicing the sound, not just, like, trying to move muscles. Because, again, we're not trying to move our muscles. That happens on its own. You're trying to change the sound, okay? The muscles move on their own. Yeah. You can push your tongue down with a spoon or something. I suppose you could probably try to do that. I don't know how well it'd work. I haven't tried it myself. But I guess let me know how that works. Yeah. Any questions about this OPC stuff? I know it's very confusing. Things to be careful of when you're doing this. Watch out for that vowel warping. We don't want vowel warping to happen. Okay, that's going to be our biggest thing that we can fuck up. All right? Saying words normally, but with that seasoning of your vowel come across. Not the vowel itself. E doesn't come across, but just something about it comes across. You know, we're dressing up in the same style or whatever. So careful with that. And then careful with, like, make sure you've gotten really good at core size before you move on to this, because core size it's easy to muddle this up with core size and then be doing core size and being like, oh yeah, I'm getting really extra small, but you're just doing a really good job of core size and you're not actually doing any OPC necessarily. So make sure you're doing both, okay? It should sound like it's getting smaller, but in a different way. Yeah? Like, listen again. We'll go for word. We'll go for word. There's that core size. Then OPC. you can kind of hear there's like two different things happening there. There's like an initial thing and then a different thing after that. And that's what we should be able to identify. Okay, I'm doing it to extreme there. They'll probably blend in a lot more normally, like word, 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 word. But you'll definitely be able to notice like, oh, one bit we're in one segment and another bit we're in another segment. And it might overlap, but still they're two segments. And that's just the two different skills, core size and OPC. So yeah, there's the other thing to help you out. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Because I know that can be quite just a lot, you know. Pot drill is better than big dog, small dog because it prevents play teal hiss. A lot of things. The big thing that, like, for pot or any other word, it's not pot necessarily, it's just a word. So whispered words is what I call it. The main benefit of it is that vowel warping, because when a pot becomes a pat, those are both words. You know those words, so you just have an easier time recognizing that it's moved over. But like big dog, little dog, well, a big dog kind of does sound more like, and a little dog does kind of sound like, but obviously that's a ho and a ha, and we don't want to be warping from o to e or vice versa. So that's why I prefer big word, little word over big dog, little dog, because we bring that, we control the vowel. Yeah. Okay, all right, let's keep going then. By all means, keep asking your questions though. So those are all the things for making our voice. Okay, those are the 3 skills. We're going to be setting our weight up, getting really good with that. Playing with our core size, getting really good with that. Okay, pairing that with OPC to get like a full package of size. Okay, and getting really good at that. So now we have our like umbrella of size, and we have our weight, and we can control those. Now we've got to put it all together. Okay, make a voice. All right. So bring ourselves to, if we're feminizing, a lightweight with a really small size, or a heavyweight with a larger size. Okay, if we're going for masculizing, or somewhere in the middle if we're going for androgynous. Okay. Now, a problem you might run into at this stage is balancing those things out. Really, we want about the same amount of weight change as we've had size change. Okay, so if we're going for a smaller voice, we want just as small as how light we go. Okay, and when we're balanced out like that, our voice sounds normal. Now we can move away from that quite a lot before noticing any issues or any oddness. But the further we go, the more our weight is like disproportionate to our size, the more we're going to notice that it sounds peculiar. So if we had a large size and a light weight, so total opposites, we would end up with a sound kind of like this. And this doesn't sound very normal. Most people don't talk like this. It sounds quite cartoonish. Like we could literally think of cartoon characters like, no, this is Patrick. Patrick kind of sounds like this. Or like, Yogi Bear, I'm smarter than the average bear. We have these voices coming through, yeah? And those are like cartoon characters. Because voice actors, to make a voice sound cartoonish, they take these 2 variables and they do like, they put one in one camp and one in the opposite camp. Yeah? Because think about like, when you're exposed to testosterone is the variable, for one variable that's changing our size or changing our weight. When we are just like looking at a typically masculinized or typically feminized voice. That's like the thing that's made that happen. Okay? But that means that that is usually going to happen within proportion to each other, because it's the same thing impacting both. So, you know, if we use made up numbers, 10 testosterone is going to make 10 change to size, and it'll also make 10 change to weight because it's the same 10 testosterone. We're not going to have like 5 weight and 6 size because it's the same amount of testosterone, but the same on both. So those changes normally happen to people in sync. So normally the same amount of weight change and the same amount of size change is happening together, okay? Because it's the same thing that's changing them. Which means they sound most normal when they are similar to each other, where we have like a large size and a heavy weight. Yeah, so if you start noticing you sound cartoonish, or like if it sounds like something's like missing in your voice, then maybe you want it to be smaller to get over to a fully feminized voice, or maybe you want it to be heavier to get to a more masculized voice, and that's what you're running into. Or it could even be like, we were going for a feminized voice. We ended up with something over here, and it still kind of has that hollow quality to it. And the reason this has that hollow quality to it is just because I've gone so unbelievably light that then, like, to go small enough, I would have to be like all the way over here for this to sound small again, for this to sound normal again. It'd be tiny, tiny, tiny. We've just gone too far with our weight change here. So we just want to be slightly heavier to get that into a more normal sound again without having to go like hyper extreme feminine. Yeah. Unless you wanted hyper extreme feminine, of course. So just play around. If you find you sound a bit underfull or a bit hollow, something's missing in the voice, have a play with like increasing the weight a little bit or decreasing the size a bit, depending on which direction you want to go. Okay. Or if we're masculizing and we sound, maybe it's the other problem. Maybe we sound a little bit overfull. Okay. Or, maybe we have our masculized voice, but we're a bit more like over here, and we still are like we're kind of sounding there. We just have a little issue still, and that's we need to get a little bit bigger to get to where we're trying to get to. Or maybe we still sound really, really buzzy and really like overfull, and it's just because we've gone way like super, super heavy with it, and we just need to scale that back a little bit into a more normal area to then have ourselves with our masculized voice. Does that make sense? So just if you're finding your sound cartoonish, like overfull, think like SpongeBob SquarePants has a little bit of this going on, or this is me going small and heavy. It's like it doesn't make sense there. We think of like a cartoon gnome. They would often sound like this. Or if you think of like elves, not as in like Legolas, but as in like Santa's little helper elves, they kind of have this kind of a sound going on typically. That's how voice actors tend to like represent their voices. And yeah, that's that overfull sound. Okay. And that's just too much weight for the amount of size, or like not a big enough size for the heaviness of a weight. Yeah. Now you don't have to be like a perfect cross section where we have like perfect fullness. We just, if you're having an issue where you already feel like you're cartoonish, the reason might be a fullness issue. Okay. If there isn't a problem, there isn't a problem. Don't think of this as a step that you need to do necessarily. It's only if you already think there's a problem that you need to engage with this. Okay. If you don't think there's a problem, then it wasn't a problem. Don't fix things that aren't broken. Just letting you know, OPC Club. Oh yes, thank you, Blabs. I specifically was like, I will remember to change this. I'm going to change this, and I didn't change it. Oh, you can't see the graph. Okay, this is going to make so much more sense to you. You see that graph now? What I was talking about. Okay. Hopefully that just suddenly makes it so much clearer. Okay. So we want our weight. If we have a small size, we want a light weight to get to that full fem. If we want a heavy weight, if we're going from full mask, we want that heavy weight and a large size, and we want them to be reasonably in sync with one another. Thank you, Blabs. Hopefully that's so much clearer now. Thank you. Okay. Oh, you even had put that in trans voice, and I just hadn't noticed. I'm sorry, that's my bad. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be way clearer now. Everybody say thank you to Blabs. Yeah, so if you're having an issue with that, play with where you are on that chart. Okay. Any questions on it? Glad you could help. I'm glad you could help too. Any other questions? It's a relatively simple thing for fullnessing. You don't have to be like perfectly full. You can move towards a bit hollow, or you can move towards a bit overfull. That's totally fine. It's only if you notice that like you feel like it sounds cartoonish and you're not happy with it, that this could be the source. Okay? Don't try to find a problem that isn't there. Just if you've already noticed an issue, check if it's this. Okay? All right, cool. So, moving on from fullness. So you've you've mastered, you've done your softies, you've gotten your good healthy voice ready to start doing your stuff. Okay, you mastered weight. You can do whatever weight you were trying to do. Okay, for whichever, if you're masculizing, you're trying to get heavy. If you're feminizing, you're trying to get light. You're really good at being able to do that now. You've mastered size, both in the core size section and in the OPC section or OPE section. You've got the size, you can control it. You can be whatever size you want to be. Okay, you've brought that together. Okay, and you've got it all in balance with one another. So you have a nice full. You can just do a feminine voice, or you can do a masculine voice. You can do androgynous voice. Perfect, amazing, well done. All that's left to do is make it your own. Okay, because there's a lot of feminine voices out there. There's a lot of masculine voices out there. There's a lot of androgynous voices out there. Or there's a lot of variation between androgynous voices. There's not very many androgynous voices, but there's a lot of like potential androgynous voices. That's a very like subjective concept. And what I want in my feminine voice might be totally different to what somebody else wants in a feminine voice. You have like Z from Trans Voice Lessons. I'm sure many of you have heard her voice before. Hey, it's a girl, Z. She has a much more like hyper feminized voice compared to mine. Mine's a lot more scaled back. It's larger. It's heavier compared to that hyper femme. Okay, because I didn't want hyper femme. I just wanted like average femme. I prefer that sound. And here in England, in Britain, that's a much more common sound. Whereas like over in America, things tend to be a bit more hyper femmed in the feminine voices. Please ignore my dog barking. Sorry about her. Can I drop a link to the lesson? Oh, hey, Zoe. Zoe, that's not even something we'll talk about later. That hasn't even happened. Beth does not have mod powers in our Discord. The link for the YouTube. If you head over to Trans Network, then youtube.com/trans_network, you'll be able to find the VOD. HTTPS www. Oh, that's not how I do it. I need the slashes. www.youtube.com/@trans_network. Yeah. Okay. Go on there and you'll be able to find the VOD. It'll be the one that's live right now. No worries. Feel free to go on there and grab the link for this live stream and pop in the chat for anyone else that wants a easier click experience. Okay, so making it your own voice. All right, there's loads of feminine voices. There's loads of masculine voices. Which one do you want? Tons of potential androgynous voices. That's so subjective. So there's loads of things you might want to play with. Maybe you like fry. Maybe you just like the sound of fry. Fry is this like popping sound in your voice. You'll notice. I just did it there. But you'll notice I use fry quite a bit in my voice. I don't use it all the time. I just accent some of my sentences. So I like a little bit of fry. If you catch me on like a late evening lesson, I use quite a lot of fry. Or if you watch one of the old workshops where I had a different time slot, which was much later, a lot of fry would start to come in. So we have that as something we can use. So if you like fry, maybe throw some fry in. Or maybe pitch, okay? I mentioned right at the start. Pitch does not have a big impact on the gender perception of your voice. For example, if I switch into a more masculine voice now... wait, do I remember how to do my old voice? Fuck. This is probably all stream from all... It's usually the OBE that I mess up. But yeah, if I have a more typically masculized voice, and then I could switch into my more feminized voice, and nothing's changed in the pitch there. That was the exact same pitch, but we switched from masculine to feminine, because pitch doesn't have a big impact on it. Or if we use the masculinized voice, and we go high pitch, and we have this high-pitched masculinized voice, but still doesn't sound like it's this still doesn't sound like any crazy thing. This doesn't sound feminine. The words completely left me there. We don't have a feminized voice now. We just have a high-pitched male voice. Nothing happened at all to the gender perception of a voice. And then again, if I switch to this feminized voice, I'm already quite a low pitch. But that's about as low as I can go without going crazy. This lower pitched feminized voice doesn't sound like super masculine. It doesn't sound less feminine. It just sounds like a low pitched feminine voice. Again, this whole workshop I've had a low pitched feminine voice because I quite like a lower pitch. So what you're hearing from my pitch right now is probably like an E sharp, an E3, F3 kind of area. That's usually around where I speak. Sometimes it's even dropping down to C3, the bottom of a third octave. Yeah, pitch can be wherever you want it to be. Yeah, I especially run into this with the feminizers, where they think they need to be really high pitch, and it's super not true. People quite like low pitches. Actually, it's quite a common thing that people enjoy. It can sound more feminine even, depending on your tastes. So yeah, if you think this sounds feminine, then low pitches can sound feminine. Yeah. So yeah, put your pitch wherever you want it to be. It's more of a cultural thing than a gendered thing. Okay, going beyond that, breathiness is another thing you could play with. By the way, there's an infinite list of things you can play with. These are just common ones that come up, but when students are talking about what voice they want, these are the things I typically hear about. Okay, usually in about this order, actually. So some people want a bit of breathiness in their voice, and if you like a bit of breathiness in your voice, you can add a bit of breathiness. Those three in combination, people quite like actually. So if you had a low pitch voice, kind of slow the speech down a bit, add that little bit of breathiness I have, and just every so often have a little bit of fry. It produces that kind of a voice, You all know where I'm going with that. If you don't know, don't worry about it. But some people like that kind of a voice, So if you like that, go for it. Hells yeah. More power to you. Twang is another one. Or maybe any of these, you really didn't like breathiness. You've got breathiness, you don't want it. Practice that breathiness so you can get rid of it, okay? Whenever you're trying to get rid of a variable, first get good at doing it on purpose so that you can on purpose not do it. That's how you gain control, okay? So add more breathiness and then take away breathiness and then add more and then take it away and then add more and then take it away, okay? So you can go super, super breathy and super, super not breathy, i.e. just not using any breathiness, okay? And that's how you'll take it out of your voice if you want to take it out of your voice, all right? It's about just gaining control. Twang is another one. Initially, it seems like something that you'd never hear, but then when we look at it, actually, this does pop up in different voices. So twang is this factor here. If you kind of do imagine a baby crying, wee, wee, like a really cartoonish, wee. We have that kind of voice. We put it into our voice. This is twang, okay? Now, it sounds really crazy. It sounds like something that's never in anybody's voices. And then when we think about it, actually, this does come up in voices. So if you think of Mabel from Gravity Falls, she has a little bit of twang. Not like a crazy amount like this, but if I scale it back a little bit, she has a little bit of twang in her voice. If you think of Darcy from the MCU, she also plays one of the people in Two Broke Girls. I don't remember what the actress's name is. I'm sure somebody can put it in chat. But she has a bit of twang in her voice. Is she Kristen Stewart? Is that her name, or is that somebody else entirely? There's also there's a comedian. There's a British comedian woman. I don't know her name. I used to know her name, and I have forgotten her name. And I can picture her. This is now every workshop I just describe her like this. She's on some panel shows. I know that. And she has actually quite a bit of twang in her voice. So twang does appear in people's voices. It takes minutes to notice it sometimes. So you can play with either, if you have twang, you don't like it, you remove it. If you don't have twang, you quite like it, you want to sound like Mabel from Gravity Falls, bring it in. And start practicing it. Accent is another one to mention. These are just the ones to mention because these come up often. But there's an inexhaustive list because there's just all the other things you could do with your voice. But accent is a common one that comes up. People either wanting to totally change their accent or preserve their accent. A common thing that people run into Typically not with this, like the curriculum that I teach, but I have seen it with other teachers, is becoming American, becoming a Cali girl, okay? I'm sure a lot of you feminizers have come across this, where you get that Valley girl accent, and that is definitely not something that is supposed to be happening, okay? Nothing should happen to your accent unless you did that on purpose, okay? You don't need a Cali girl accent to have a feminized voice. I don't have a Cali girl accent. I have an ordinary British accent. It was important to me to keep my accent. I wanted to still sound like me. We save questions for just for a moment, please, Olive. Feel free to type them in chat. We'll stay muted for now. Thank you. Yes, your accent doesn't need to change unless you mean for it to change. Okay. Yeah, I will drill that a million times. I do see some vocal coaches. Yeah. No worries, Olive. It happens. I've done the same thing in other people's workshops before. It happens. I've definitely like seen some people like being taught in a way that does kind of teach that a more Valley Girl accent is like part of feminization. It just isn't. Like there are women that don't live in West Coast America, like in Britain, and yeah, we don't sound like that. So you don't have to change your accent unless you want to. Okay, that's like a really important thing to drill down. You can still sound British. You can still sound German. You can still sound whatever. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on any of that? The point of this section is just explore and this is really one of the first things I want you to do. Maybe do this while you're practicing the softies right at the start of your journey. Think about what kind of voice you want. You know, what do you want in your voice? Do you want any of these things? These things. How do you want to sound? Maybe you just want to sound like what I wanted in my voice. I wanted to still be recognizably me. I wanted everything that was me in my voice to still be there, just the feminine version of it. I wanted everything to sound exactly. If it wasn't a gendered thing, I didn't want it to change. I only wanted strictly the gendered things to change. Okay? So it was the exact same voice, just the feminized version. Okay? And I didn't want hyper feminized. I wanted like an average feminized. You know? And that's what I was going for. Okay? So that's quite a specific voice we've set up there, and that's what I want you to do. Think about a very specific voice that you want, that you could actually like play in your head and compare against, because we really need something to compare against so we know how we're doing, you know? Because if you don't have anything to compare against, you'll masculize, or you'll feminize without any end in sight, because you haven't defined the end. So you'll just do it forever, and then you end up with this like super hyper feminized or hyper masculized voice, and you don't even know. You think you haven't really been able to do much. You haven't been able to reach your goals because you didn't define your goal. Yeah. So make sure you have a specific goal. That's like a specific. You could play this voice. This is a specific voice. Yeah. It could be an actual like literally like somebody on YouTube maybe, or a combination of like, oh, I like this thing in this voice and this thing in this voice and this thing in this voice. We could imagine like bring those together into one voice. Yeah. But that's the point. Even if we could only imagine it, it's a voice, not like a category of voices. Yeah. So we don't just want a feminine voice. We want what kind of feminine voice. Yeah. Or we don't just want a masculine voice. What kind of masculine or androgynous? You know, define your goal, because otherwise you'll be training forever. You had wanted if training with someone who has a different accent would affect your accent. No, it shouldn't do. It shouldn't do. If it does, I would question the teaching methods of that teacher. It shouldn't affect your accent at all. And none of what we do will affect your accent. That does happen sometimes, where people like mimic their teacher and get their voice or get their accent. I would put that as like the teacher's responsibility to not let that happen. Because all of these things should be intentional. Any change that happens to your voice should be because you did that on purpose. No accidental changes. Yeah? Because we want to be in control. Of course, yeah. If you move to America, you spend all your time in America, around Americans, with American accents, you're going to develop an American accent. But that's like a separate thing. Same if you move to Russia and spend all your time with Russians and speaking to Russians and all that, you're going to start sounding Russian. Because that's just a thing we do as humans. Very social animals. Okay, all right. Continuing onwards. If you still have questions, ask those questions. All right. You've been able to not only do the gender voice that you want, but at this stage, you're doing your voice. You made it your own. The exact perfect voice you had in your head. That's what you're able to produce. Now it's just doing it all the time. Habituation is our last step. Okay. So congratulations by that. At this point, you can do the voice. Exactly what you're wanting to do, you're able to do it. And you could do it, and you could talk to me right now in it. But it's a different thing doing that all the time and making that your default voice, where you don't even have to think about it. So at this stage, like on purpose, you can do it, but it isn't just the natural thing to do. And all you need to do to habituate your voice is just start using it all the time. Just switch. And it will start habituating. Now, when you start doing this, you will immediately run into a big issue. Okay? And that big issue is that as soon as you try to start using it out in the wild, this is your voice now, everything suddenly falls apart. And it's like, you don't even know how to control your voice. It's like you started again from square one. You have no idea how to do any of this all of a sudden. And you know how to do this, but you just can't do it for some reason. You know you can do this voice, but you just can't retrieve it in that moment. And that's really normal and happens to everybody. What's happening here is essentially your brain. We often think of it like a computer and like storing bits of data, but that's not actually how it works in the slightest. You're not a computer. You don't just have a bunch of files stored that you then just retrieve the feminized voice file. Okay? Instead, you learn in this branching pattern, okay? So you have a bunch of connections, okay? And you have all of this knowledge of voice training and all of this knowledge of the voice and like how to do the voice you want to do. You know how to do that. And then that idea is connected with practice, because that's when you've been doing it. You've been doing it in practice. It's connected with being on your own, because normally we practice on our own. If you do practice around other people, that's amazing, and do that, because that will help avoid this happening. But most of us don't feel comfortable. Most of us want to be on our own when we do our voice training because it's embarrassing. Although again, if you are down to do it with other people, I super recommend that. So you have this like being on our own, practicing. Our talking isn't conversational; it's just kind of rambling out loud. Okay. Maybe you always practice in the same place, so that's there. Maybe, all of these different like things that happen. Maybe you're recording and you're used to like that being there. Okay. Or maybe, you do lessons and you're like in lesson or in practice, and those are the two things. There's all these different connections attached to your voice. And then you try to use it in the wild, and not a single one of those connections is still there. It's just trying to retrieve your voice. And you know how to do this, but your brain's just having a hard time retrieving that information because all of those connections that it mapped it out with are now missing. So it's like, fuck, where do I find this information? And that's what's happening, okay? And this fixes itself on its own. It sucks, and it's really frustrating and can be really like uncomfortable and embarrassing. But if you just kind of push through and just keep trying to use your voice, even though it's just not working, and just keep trying, it'll just, suddenly it's back again, okay? And all that's happening is just how you push, like literally just keep going. Like, you know how to do your voice, just keep trying, and just, like, if you've decided to make this your full-time thing, so just keep doing it. Just keep going, okay? And what will happen over time, and I say over time, for me, this was like 2 weeks, okay? From like not using like full-time boy moding to full-time girl moding, okay? So I went for a hard switch, okay? And within 2 weeks, it fixed itself. And it's literally just your brain reorganizing those connections and reforming those connections so that instead of connecting your feminized voice with all these other things, it just connects it with voice. And just whenever you use your voice, it's that voice. Yeah? Just needs your brain to just reorganize things, okay? So you don't need to do anything. Just keep going. Keep persisting with using it full time, and it will just fix itself. Yeah. Now, if you have been this whole time using your voice around other people, using it in the wild from the very beginning, you won't have this issue, and there will be no problem. As soon as you have there won't even be a moment where you switched over, because it's just when you finished learning the last thing, you just stuck with it, and that was, you've just been sticking with whatever you've learned as you've learned it. That's like the fastest way you can learn, and you won't have this habituation issue. But almost everybody I speak to, I've not yet had a student who was comfortable doing that. Everybody wants to learn how to feminize their voice in private and then bring it into their public life. I was the same. So totally valid if that's where you're at. And just when you're ready, you switch over. Just know that the harder that switch is, the more extreme that switch there is, the harder it's going to be to retrieve your voice in the moment of the wild. But again, it goes away really quickly. As soon as you're full time with your voice, 2-3 weeks, suddenly you can do it easily again. Okay? It's just a little awkward phase. Kind of like growing your hair out. There's a little awkward phase. Okay? And it goes away on its own. Yeah? So just to prepare you for that. It can feel really frustrating, but know that it's normal and it just goes away on its own. Yeah? Just kind of keep going and it'll just fix itself. It is very frustrating. But yeah, it will just, so long as you persist with, I am going to use this full time. I'm not giving up on this. I'm using it full time. I'm doing this. It will just fix itself. Yeah. So within about 2-3 weeks, however long it is for you, maybe it's a bit longer even, maybe it's a month. Once you've gotten past that stage, you can do it all the time, but you're still doing it on purpose. Keep going, just using it full time, and eventually your brain will make the switch to making it your default. So one day you'll realize you weren't even thinking about it and you were using your voice. At that stage, you're fully habituated. That's just your voice now. You have to try to do the old voice, and you'll still be able to do that, but that's the one you do on purpose, and this is just your voice. Yeah. And you'll find at that stage, if you have an internal monologue, you think in your new voice, you dream in your new voice, you cough, you sneeze, everything is just in your new voice. To the extent that breathing has a sound, you breathe in your new voice, it just becomes your voice. That's the stage I'm at. Now, again, varies for everybody, 3-4 months of using it full time, and it'll just be your default voice. Then as we keep going beyond there, if you are never using your old voice, you just don't use it at all. After 6-7, again, varies for everybody. For me, it was about 6 months of not using my old voice. I was practicing and keeping it intentionally. And then I took a pause from the workshops because I needed a mental health break, and I didn't have any masculizing students at the time. So because of that, I never used my mask voice. And now I've had to spend the last few weeks relearning it because I realized how much I didn't have it. I'm still working on that. If you don't use your old voice for 6-7 months, it'll kind of just go away. You won't remember how to do it. You won't be able to do it anymore. You'd have to re-voice train to do it again. So if that's your goal, then there you go. Just make the full-time switch. Never go back. After half a year to a year, you'll at some point realize you don't even know how to go back. And that's that. That's it. Done. Thank you for the session. You do have to return from your break. No worries. Hope you'll have a wonderful day. Thank you for coming, Olive. Thanks so much. Any questions about anything we've talked about today? Any questions whatsoever? As you can tell from where we have arrived here, that that's it. That's the process. That's how it all works. That is how you masculize, feminize, or androgynize your voice. Okay, you guys keep typing out your questions. I am going to say a few special thank yous. So reminder to everybody that these workshops we're doing for all of this month of Pride, okay? All the money from these workshops all goes to our disadvantaged youth fund, okay? So over in Trans Network, in my Discord server, we have a fund that is for people of 25 years or under who are low income, can't afford to get voice lessons. That's impacting their transition because they just can't, they don't have access. We have a community fund where we've all pitched in and raising money to pay for their lessons. Okay. And right now for Pride, all Ko-fi donations, everything to our Ko-fi is going straight into that pie. Okay. All of it is going into that fund. So if you donate £10 with the Ko-fi link below, then that will be £10 towards somebody's lessons. We're also doing, if you subscribe to one of the tiers, so instead of doing a £25 donation, you do the £25 tier. I think it's a £25 tier. Yeah, I think that's tier 3 is £25, maybe. Yes, it is. It is. Because it's 5, 10, 25, 50, 100 for the crazy people. Anything that people do through the membership for the tiers, that gets doubled. Okay, so if you sign up for the £25 tier, £50 is going to be put in. If you sign up for the £100, well, I'll match it. I'll make that a £200. Okay, because we want to raise money. We want to do something good for Pride. I want to give back. So yeah, if you want to help disadvantaged youths, people just can't afford to get their lessons and they can't complete their transition because of that, sign up for a Ko-fi membership tier or just make a one-time donation, because all of that money is going into that. Like I say, the tiers, the subscriptions, those are getting doubled. I will match those. I got you. Okay, so huge thank you to our tier 1 supporters, these people that have supported at the £5 level. Okay, Misty, Mihugi, Himori, Grave Roger Maria, and Vi. Thank you so much to those people. I think Mihugi is yeah, Mihugi's here. Hi Huggy, thank you. Yeah, that £5, that's going to become £10. Or those £5, they're all going to become £10 and they're all going to be thrown into the kitty. Okay. For the tier 2 supporters, our £10 supporters, we have Lanmisa, Ona, Leah, and Liv. I think we had Ona here earlier. Is she still here? No, she was here earlier. Huge thank you to those people. All of those £10 this month is going to become £20 in the key. Okay. And then our huge tier 3 supporters, massive thank you to those people. Beth, we have over here. Beth, Raya, and Laurie. Huge thank you to those people. Okay, thank you, Beth. Everybody in the chat, thank you, Beth. Okay. At 25 is going to be a £50 donation. Okay. Well, each of those 25s. And yeah, we can make that bigger. Okay, so if you want to help out trans youth, then head over to the Ko-fi. Whichever thing you decide to go for, that's going in the kitty. Okay. If it's a membership tier, then that's going to be doubled. All right. Even if you do it this month and then just cancel it, so it's the same as just doing a one-time thing, that's fine. You know, I'll still match it. Okay. Yeah. Let's help some people. Hells yeah. All right. So, open Q&A. We don't have time today, so I do need to rush off. Thank you very much, everybody. If you want your own lessons or you want like more of me, the main place to go to is our Discord server. There is a link on screen next to the logo. It is, can I do fingers? Here, that one there. That one there is a Discord link. Okay. If you're watching via YouTube, then check the description and there's a link right there. You can just click on it and invite to the server. If you are in Transvoice and you want that link, then I'm using Zara's 1.2 right now. Just click on my bio on my Discord account, and there's a link on that one as well. So wherever you are, wherever you're watching right now, there is just a click-through link if you want it. So you can use that to hop over to Trans Network, and that's the server. We have D&D, which is pretty cool. It is community-led. Literally just someone in the community asked if they can, and I was like, oh my god, you can. Super cool. But if you're looking for opportunities to practice around other people, you want to make that habituation phase easier, D&D is genuinely like one of the best ways to do it. Okay, because like it encourages you to like voice a character. Okay, so use your voice that you're trying to work on for that character. D&D is such a good way to practice, like genuinely, and it's so fun. Really fun way to practice. Super recommend it. So head over to Discord server for that. Again, if you're looking for help from me, we have the lessons. The clip feedback is just a free thing. So if you want to just submit a clip of your voice and like, hey, can you just help me with this? I can do that. Do know that like I might not get to it quickly because it is just a free service. But when I'm able to, I will come by there when I have free time to do so. And yeah, lessons. If you want private lessons, join the server. You want public lessons, join the server. £35 for a 55-minute lesson if it's private, or £10 for a 55-minute lesson if it's public. The public ones are like live streamed, just like this workshop, but live streamed. People from the server can like listen in. And yeah, the public ones are currently fully booked, but just keep an eye out if you're looking for those. Any other things? Have I missed? The YouTube, obviously. Hi, YouTube. Hi. Yeah, people that are not on YouTube, I suppose. If you want to see the VOD of this afterwards, if you want to see all the past VODs, every workshop we've done, not actually everyone, but when we switched over to YouTube, there's like a whole bunch from before then that are unfortunately missing. But now we've got like all the way back to I think December of 2024, so it's a pretty decent backlog. Obviously we've significantly improved since then. But yeah, if you want to see past workshops, if you want to see this workshop again, and you just want to rewatch a section, youtube.com/@trans_network. Head over there and you'll have YouTube stuff. We've got the VODs there, we've got the public lessons are all there. So you can go watch those if you want to. All of everything we put online is saved there for eversies. I don't take it down. So you can use that if you want to, if that's useful for you. Make sure you comment any questions that you have. Like seriously, if you have questions, like pop a comment down. I always respond to those, even if it's like a 6-month-old video and you have a question, that's fine. Just write a thing down. I still answer questions on 6-month-old videos. That's totally fine. Yeah, and if you want to just be helpful to like the algorithm and stuff, then like, comment, subscribe. Subscribing, obviously, you can have all of this stuff actually popping up for you. Yeah, I guess share if you want to share a video with like people that you think will be like aided by that. That'd be amazing. Thank you. And yeah, if you want to support what we do, head over to the Ko-fi. And thank you so much to the people that do that. Yeah. For this month, Pride Month, every Wednesday. So this is the second one. There's going to be 2 more. So next Wednesday and the Wednesday after that, we'll have workshops. And then it will be the next one. I moved it back a week so I can have a break. So then there won't be a workshop, and then there'll be July's workshop. Okay, so it'll be the second Wednesday of July for July's workshop, and then like it's just every 4 weeks from every 3 weeks there, and then it's every 4 weeks. You get the idea. If you join the Discord server, you don't have to figure it out. Just go on the events. It's all there. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that sums it up. If there's anything I was supposed to plug, let me know. People in Trans Network, have I missed any plugs? I think I got all the stuff. Thank you all so much for being here. And yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll see you next week, okay? Have a good one. All right. Bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.